All right, City Clerk, could you take the roll, please? Just take the roll.
Let's take the roll. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Simmons. Here. Alderman Suffredin. Is here. Alderman Ravel. Here. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. And Alderman Nguyen. We have a quorum, hopefully.
All right. Thank you, City Clerk. And thank you, everybody, for coming out for the Monday, November 12th, 2018 Evanston City Council meeting. I know we have a couple aldermen that are making their way back up here, and we have everybody here this evening. First item on the agenda, do we have any veterans in the house? And if we do, would you please stand? Would you please stand? Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's often forgotten that today is Veterans Day. Yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the Armistice, which was the conclusion of World War I. A lot of people forget World War I. There were 32 countries that were at war. There were 9.7 million soldiers that died. There were 7 million civilians that died in World War I. There were 117,000 U.S. soldiers that died. There were 138 that are represented and reflected on the wall at Fountain Square. So it's worth remembering that the freedoms that we have to come out here and to speak our mind and to protest and to assemble are due to the sacrifices that so many people have made throughout the history of this country. So thank you for taking a moment for that. I'd like to turn to the city manager for any actually, I guess I have one more thing while we're on it. National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, which I know there are many people here in the crowd that are working on that issue, as well as the City Council in general, is November 11th to the 17th. So it is coming up. It is this week that we're in it. If you want to contribute and support that, there's a lot of organizations around Evanston that are working on that issue, including Connections for the Homeless, which there's some members here in the audience today. So with that, to the city manager, any announcements?
I do.
Come on, I don't run nothing. Right.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. We're here tonight to start to recognize two employees that are leaving us. And first, I'd like to bring up Bob Dornicker, our Assistant Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. We talk a lot at City Council about why people come to Evanston. People come to Evanston. Some people come here to go to school. Some people come here because of a job. But many people come here for quality of life. People come here because we're just a nice place to live. And unfortunately, I don't think we take enough time to stop and think about what makes this place such a nice place to live. Bob Dornicker is one of the reasons Evanston is such a nice place to live. The energy, effort that he has put forward in his many years since 1986 as a member of our staff and really as a senior manager within our Parks, Recreation, Community Services Department, although it's probably been called 4 or 5 different things over the years. But what it all boils down to is Bob has made this place the place we all want to live. He has made this place active. He's made this place fun. He has spent countless hours of his own time driving back and forth from far away. Where exactly? Forest Park. To be here so that Evanstonians can have fun, that Evanstonians can say, boy, this is a great place we live. How active, a wonderful place this is. So that's what Bob Dornicker's done in his many years here. And Bob is moving on to new challenges, is retiring from the city of Evanston after this distinguished career. And Bob You've made Evanston more fun. You've made Evanston a place people want to be. You've contributed to the great quality of life of this community. So on behalf of Mayor Haggerty, the City Council, and all of us have been lucky to work with you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wally, for the very kind words. It's really been an honor to work for the city and a privilege, and I've really loved the years of serving the residents. We've had many accomplishments. I've met many new friends. I've been involved with many challenges, and we've made a lot of success, and I think the park system is in better shape, and hopefully the residents are happy with our efforts that we've put forth. I wish you the best. Again, I thank you very much for the opportunity to work for the City of Evanston. I love the City of Evanston. I will very much miss the City of Evanston. And with that, thank you once again, and best of wishes.
Bob, stay up there for a second. You know how these aldermen are. We got a couple lights up here. We got Alderman Wilson and then Alderman Fisk and then another alderman.
Bob, actually, I think Wally, I couldn't say it much better than Wally did, but you literally have made living in Evanston better for every single person in this room and every single person in this city. There are people in the front of the scenes and behind the scenes, and over the years you've been in both places, and I don't think there's any way for anybody to appreciate the level of commitment that you've demonstrated. You've been there for me when I've needed you. We've sat through some challenging, meetings and situations in the past, and I was grateful for your presence and your ability to handle situations. And I'm very grateful. And on behalf of the City of Evanston, I want to express that appreciation. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Fisk, and then Alderman Braithwaite.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, I spoke with you the other day, and you know how much you're going to be missed here. Besides the challenges that we've had, you've always been patient and hardworking, and you've persevered in so many challenges with good spirits, and I want you to know that that's not gone unrecognized by the citizens of Evanston. You're very much loved, and I hope the very best for you.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had our conversations, and just a heartfelt thank you. Since your announcement, I think I've learned more about all the things that you've done behind the scenes than I did working with you side by side. And I've heard stories of you sitting and painting the ice on a stool, getting underneath the ice machine and fixing it, and not to mention the assistance that you provided me with our larger groups, particularly with the Evanston Cricket Club in helping that event expand to attract more people. So from my heart, I say thank you very much. You're an incredible employee, and you'll be greatly missed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for all your service.
Next, I'd like to ask Cindy Plant to come forward. Cindy is here for a lot of reasons. One, because she was started as an ICMA Local Government Management Fellow, and as you all know, and for those of you who aren't aware, the city's been participating in the fellow program, probably for the last 8 or 9 years, and we have been able to attract some of the best and brightest talent from around the country to come work here. One of our challenges has been keeping some of the best and brightest talent, but we've succeeded with Cindy. Cindy came to us in 2013 as an ICMA fellow. During her time, worked in both the city manager's office and economic development, and then in 2015 took a full-time job with our economic development staff. Cindy gets to curate a little bit, kind of like how Bob help people have fun. Cindy helped people realize dreams. And that's also a pretty exciting thing. Looking across the dais and seeing many of you who she's worked with, Cindy has had the staff ball on Howard Street over the last few years. And, economic development, redevelopment is so painstaking. It's parcel by parcel, person by person, business by business. And it's helping not only make your dreams come true as members of the council, but individual business owners. And Cindy, you have done an excellent job. This is a great town. There's lots of economic activity. But what we excel at is we have 10 separate business districts. We don't talk enough about that. But there's 10 separate areas that have business owners that are cultivating their customers. And Cindy, you help make all that happen. So again, on behalf of the council and all of your coworkers, we're so happy you stayed with us as long as you did. Cindy is off to Winnetka to be the economic development manager. So there's no shortage of things to do to bring businesses to Winnetka. But we look forward to all of your great successes and really want to thank you for everything you've done for the residents of Evanston. Congratulations.
I just wanted to echo a lot of Bob's sentiment. I haven't been here nearly as long, but it's been an honor to be a part of this community and a part of this organization. I thank all of you for letting me be a part of it, especially as someone starting my career in local government. I can't think of a better community to have started such a career working for. It's been a privilege and an honor to work with each and every one of you. And I'll miss you all. I hope I'll be missed, but I am not going far. So I'll probably continue to see you around. So.
All right,
Thanks.
Cindy, based on the lights up here, I think you're going to be missed. Don't worry about that. Let's stay up there for a second. We got Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Rainey.
Cindy, thank you for all of the work you've done, but very much in particular, the Maine Dempster Mile. For those of you who don't know, we had two business districts, one at Maine and Dempster, one at Maine and Chicago, and they talked about getting together. And Cindy was one of the architects that really connected them, and they are flying now, really flying. And every time I look at that, I think about those long, elaborate, detailed meetings. And you were there for all of them, getting them through all the tangles and challenges. And the Third Ward looks different because of your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Rainey, and then Alderman Simmons.
And Cindy, you know that the Howard Street Business Association has Maine Dempster Mile Envy, and we're going to continue to strive to be just like them. But you are the lights and the banners and the planters on Howard Street. And in honor of all your work, I'm going to make certain that 717 Howard Street parking lot be named the Cindy Plant parking lot.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. Just a special thanks on behalf of the business community in the Fifth Ward. I haven't been here long, but you've done a lot to help with micro grant opportunities and facade and support and startups. And we really appreciate you doing that just with enthusiasm and attention. So thank you very much.
Great. And I guess I'll wrap it up. Cindy and I first met many years ago when she was the staff liaison to a committee that Mayor Tisdall appointed called the Harley Clark Advisory Committee. I thought we had an agreement that you wouldn't leave the city until we'd solved that Harley Clark thing, but I will let you go with wonderful blessings from all of us as you move up the shore. So thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
One last item, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I've included in the agenda packet some information that the council requested regarding some changes in our workforce development work. So that is there in the packet, and certainly I'm available for any questions now or later in the meeting. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk, I think we had a big election last week. Any news from you?
Yes, we do have the clerk's office has a quick snapshot. We'll have a more in-depth report that we'll make available to the public and to the council members at a later date. We are still waiting on data from the Cook County Clerk's office, but we will share what we have. Just waiting to get into presentation mode. If you click up at the top, it says present in the top corner near share in the top right corner. No, next to share. Yep, perfect. All right, so this is our post-election snapshot for the November 6th election. If we can go to the next slide. We have over 52,000 registered voters in the city of Evanston. In the March primary, that number sat at 50,000, so we've had over 2,000 new voters added to the roll since March. So, and a lot of that work was done by community members, but what's also interesting is that we had high utilization of same-day registration. We had over 500 folks cast provisional ballots, which is the highest that we've had in Evanston. So it really, having same-day voter registration has had a huge impact in allowing folks to vote, and the 5th Ward had the highest utilization of same-day registration. Yes. So quickly to speak about some of the work the clerk's office and volunteers have done, we ran, between now and the primary, we've run a two-way texting, a voter outreach and engagement campaign. Part of that was a two-way texting campaign where we encouraged folks who traditionally don't show up to vote in either in the primary and primary elections or in the general and general elections to come out and early vote. We gave out information as to where early voting was. Text messages have over 90% read rate, so it's one of the most effective ways to reach people. I'd say it has 100%. I don't know who's ever gotten a text message and at least not read it. We also did phone banking, social media outreach, and the numbers there we had with peer-to-peer texting. We had made we sent almost 30,000 texts between now and the primary, between the primary and now. We had over 30,000 views or interactions on social media with folks with our outreach campaign, pushing for early voting. We can go to the next slide. We also did phone banking and door knocking a bit, and we specifically targeted the 5th Ward, 1st Ward, and 5th Ward, 2nd Ward, and 8th Ward with phone banking and door knocking. Early voting made up about 40% of votes cast, 39.9%. That is, in the last election, early voting comprised about 28% of the votes cast. So we are seeing a very sharp increase in early vote and in utilization of early voting. And so the clerk's office is really proud of that. It's something we really push for folks to early vote. And this is a trend that we're not seeing across the board with this increase in early voting. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. For this is the first general election that Evanston has taken first spot in early vote site utilization. So we had over 13,000, almost 13,500 votes cast here at the Evanston Civic Center. And here's a chart of the last few elections, the last few general elections. In 2010, we had 3,000 votes cast. In 2014, we had 5,000. And again, in this general election, we've had 13,000, a very sharp increase. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. This is the total voter turnout going back to 1994. We see...
Voted, huh?
This is us. So this is all Evanston. So we, in 2018, we had 67% turnout, which is the highest that we've had on record, going back beyond 94, but we have the data here for going back until 1994. Very sharp increase in voter turnout. In fact, in 2014, we saw a dip in voter turnout. We can continue on. This is a comparison of Evanston versus some of the top voter turnout communities over time. We can see Evanston historically has had high voter turnout, but we have not been anywhere near number one in early voter turnout. In this election, Oak Park beat us out for number one by 2 percentage points. So congratulations, Oak Park, but we saw a sharp increase in overall turnout, as we saw on the last slide. And I will say, as to early voting, we initially predicted about 10% higher turnout, but because of the sharp increase in early vote utilization, those numbers did not pan out. This is turnout by ward. We see that the 6th ward had the highest turnout in the city, with 74% or almost 75% of eligible voters coming out to vote, or registered voters, I should say. The 5th ward, we worked hard to increase the voter turnout. We got the 5th ward got to 56% turnout. We were hoping for 60, and we will continue to work on that goal of getting every ward in the city over 60% turnout in off-year elections. We can see, and lastly, with that last slide, we see that the 1st and 2nd ward had the highest increase in voter turnout based on the last election. We can go to the next slide. This is a breakdown of the races. Here in Evanston, the Democratic candidates for governor and lieutenant governor received 62% of the vote, as is partially expected here in Evanston. We are a very heavily Democratic city. In the 17th district race, Jennifer Gong Gershowitz was the winner. I'm sorry, the next slide. Was the winner there. In the primary, Evanston went for Candace Chow. That's who Evanston supported. And in the primary, in the general election, we strongly supported the Democratic candidate. We can go to the next slide. Larry Sufferton, our Cook County Commissioner, handily won with almost 90% of the vote here in Evanston. In the Cook County Assessor's race, Fritz Kagi got 85% of the vote, roughly. And if we go on to the next slide, the Harley-Clark referendum, which was on the ballot in this election, received 80.2% of the vote citywide, and almost over 95% of voters cast a ballot. Folks who voted in this election cast a ballot for the Harley-Clark referendum, so it seemed to be something that could have been driving turnout for some folks. A breakdown by ward is next here. We see that the 6th and 7th ward had the lowest support for, or lowest relatively, support for the Harley-Clark referendum, and the highest support for it was in the 5th ward, which 83% of voters supported the Harley-Clark referendum. The real estate tax referendum, as we see, passed with 52% of the vote. And so we will now realize the revenue from that and the progressive tax structures that were set in place there. We can go to the next slide. And looking ahead, we will continue to expand and refine our voter outreach program. We will continue to create a partnership with ETHS and the Social Services Department and community groups to increase our volunteer base. In fact, in this election, the general election, we had a great number of high school students volunteering. We had a number of students who weren't even eligible to vote, 16 and 17-year-olds who weren't eligible to vote in this election, making phone calls and sending out messages to folks to get them out to vote. So that is, I think, great for those students. And also we'll continue, the clerk's office will continue pushing for democracy reforms that increase participation. We've talked in the past about campaign finance reform and have had conversation with Common Cause around that. And last year we talked about participatory budgeting, and we'll continue those conversations over the years to come. And then a more thorough report will be available for the council members and for the public. We'll post it online in the coming weeks when more data is available from the county clerk's office. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Clerk Reed, for that good review and the positive work. All right, we're going to move ahead now to public comment. This evening we've got 40, could be a little more than 40 people signed up for public comment. So per our rules, we set aside 45 minutes for public comment. We take the number of people, we divide it by the time that we have. So today, what I'm going to ask is that everyone try to keep your comments to 1 minute. So we're looking for folks to be concise, and if somebody else has said what you've said, feel free to say, hey, I agree with what Lonnie said, or whoever it may have been that was in front of you. And I want to make sure we're respectful to everybody that wants to speak, as well as the folks up here, so we can make sure there's time for the council to discuss and deliberate on the issues. The city clerk will keep track of the time, and we've got a little timer up here, so if you hit a minute and you haven't finished up, you're going to hear a beep, and if you could wrap it up real quickly after that, I'd appreciate it. All right. I'll call the three so you guys can line up and get in order. I apologize, as always, if I mispronounce anyone's name. The first speaker is going to be Lonnie Wilson, and Lonnie is already up there. Then we've got Charlotte Hilton, and then Robin Robinson. Welcome, Lonnie.
Welcome.
You got to turn that off.
Welcome, Mr. Honorable Mayor. I want to talk about the budget, but I also want to do it through a prism that you actually hand to me. You kind of admonished the population for coming up here and saying things in disrespectful ways, and that we should try to be a little bit more respectful. But I want to say that if we're going to start volleying truths back and forth from government body to people, that the first volley from you guys needs to be the truth. And in that way, if there's not hidden agendas and ambiguities going on, people will be able to respond to you in a very good way. I'll use the youth and young adult program as a way. It was on the cut list. Then all of a sudden it became a reorganization. You know, let's just look at it. If the youth and young adult program is the 85 Bears, you can't make Walter Payton the quarterback and expect it to run the same way. It just won't work. So that reorganization hurts. So, and then also, you kind of got on people on social media who attack Wally. And Wally, I'm one of those people. I spend a lot of time on you because you're the face. But I realized something. You got 9 bosses up there. And sometimes I let them off because one of them's my daughter, one of them's my family, and 2 of them are close friends, so I don't jump on them as much. So I'm making a public apology to you, Wally, for jumping on you on social media, because sometimes I jump out of my bed and put on golf shoes and jump on you. That's just what I do for a living. But I need to apologize because you got a mandate, and that mandate came from those 9 people, and we need to remember that when it's election time. So if I'm mad at you, I'm actually mad at all of them. Sorry about that, Wally.
Thank you, Lon. Thank you.
But I also want to talk about that truth from this Evanston has not told the truth since John Evans walked here with Native American blood on his moccasins to create this place. It's never told the truth. It's always been a nice commercial of equality and diversiveness. It's a place where people can come and pretend like they're doing right. That's what happens here. And whenever you upset that nice little balance, people get upset. Well, I'm sorry, I'm the balance kicker. It's not some warm, wonderful place on the lake. It's what I call this place is the lie by the lake. You guys do have a great PR program about how you help people and do for people, but as soon as the budget comes up, now you have a poor people's lobby. Let's figure out which poor people should fight over what dollar. If we look at the investment dollar, when you invest $1 into an alley and you invest $1 into the youth and young adult program, it's a total different investment. And we can't bean count our way through that. So I'm sorry, Wally, if I called you a bean counter, but...
Thank
Right, okay, all right.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Thanks, you guys.
We got Charlotte Hilton, Robin Robinson, then Reverend Michael Neighbors. And again, if you hear the sound go off on our phone, that means you're at your minute, and I need you to wrap it up real quick after that. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Now, I'm not that disabled. Okay. You got it? Yeah, I got it.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to piggyback on some of the things that he did make a statement about. But however, I want to focus on the program pertaining to the youth. Prioritize the holistic service of the youth and young adult division by ending the plan to reorganize the program. Do not reorganize the program, but enhance the program. Do not reorganize the program, but keep the successful best practice model and the leadership trained to implement it. Do not reorganize the program. Adult workforce development is in the current program model and should be enhanced. Reward the program for successful serving thousands of Everstonians by expanding it. Do not dismantle it. Do not divide the program by breaking it up into community development, community services, and recreation. Keep the program and its budget intact. Maintain the Department of Justice Office of Juvenile Delinquency Best Practice Program model. Maintain the program leadership. They have been trained to implement the Department of Justice Office of Juvenile Delinquency Best Practice Program model. If it ain't broke, no need to fix it. Enhance the Best Practice Program by expanding its workforce development more. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. We've got Robin Robinson, then Reverend Michael Neighbors, then Janad Rizki.
Good evening. My name is Robin Robinson. I am a lifelong resident of Evanston and a taxpayer. Tonight, I'd like to speak on behalf of Kevin Brown and the Youth and Young Adult Division. There's talk about the dissembling of it, and I personally have a problem with that. And maybe you can kind of help me make some sense out of the nonsense that has come about with it. Why would we disassemble something that we have evidence it's been nothing but successful? Under the leadership of Kevin Brown, not Pastor Cherry, no disrespect to you. Kevin put this team together, and they took off and they excelled, and they made a difference in the community I live in. That is one of the few successful things that I have seen come about, and I'm 54 years old, directed at the minority in Evanston. Lonnie talked about that, hogwash, all of that other stuff. Yeah, feed me a dream. I'm not eating. The youth and young adult program is successful. It speaks for itself. It's evident in our community. I have seen youths myself that I know of who have been able to turn their lives around and head in another direction because of the guidance that's given to them. Pastor Cherry has the Fleetwood Community Center. Let him have it. You're talking about, from what I've read, putting Kevin over the community workforce development program. If you want that program to be successful, why can't that program be merged with the existing program that Kevin has shown he can successfully run? So when I say if it's not broke, why are we trying to fix something that ain't broke? Can you help me make sense out of your nonsense?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Okay. We have Reverend Neighbors. Let's see, maybe we got a speaker.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sharon Weeks, and I'm here to read a letter on behalf of Reverend Michael Neighbors, who is not able to be with you tonight. It says, for the City Council meeting November 12, 2018. The Evanston North Shore branch of the NAACP recognizes the continued work of the City Manager's Office to bring a balanced 2019 budget to the citizens of Evanston. We continue to stand in solidarity with other organizations and houses of worship to ensure that the proposed budget is a moral document that seeks to support the humanity and dignity of all Evanston residents. We are grateful for changes that have occurred in health and human services as it relates to programs that especially benefit minorities and African Americans. We are grateful for the changes made in the police and fire departments that also benefit the same population. We are also grateful for the continued operation of Gibbs Morrison. We continue to show our concern regarding the youth and young adult division. We are very optimistic that an opportunity to have Kevin Brown remain in his position and to keep this critical program intact is attainable. Whatever we can do to help assist this effort, we are willing to do it. We speak out once again saying the excellence of the division and everyone in it has placed hundreds of our children and young adults on the right track and has also helped hundreds of families over the years. Kevin Brown's sterling reputation as a leader, champion for youth and young adults, we believe, is best served where he is. If anything, please consider growing his department to include workforce development rather than taking him out of youth and young adult services. This is a new day in our community to empower the people to actively voice their thoughts and ideas regarding budget formation for the city is already a victory, and we won't turn back. Michael Neighbors, President, Evanston North Shore, branch of the NAACP.
Thank you, Sharon. We got Janad Rizki, Josh Hall, and Ali Harned.
Wow.
No Janad. All right. If Janad's not here, how about Josh Hall? Josh is here. So we'll go with Josh and then Ali Harned, and then we'll have Fitz Haanen.
Good evening. Mr. Brown has been working with Mr. Neil Gambro and the Mayor's Employment Advisory Council since August of 2017. This successful work should continue as it has in this division. It should be enhanced, maintained, not reorganized. June 21st, 2011, I was 17 years old, and I remember locking hands with individuals of my grade, talking about violence in our community because we were sick and tired of being sick and tired of our youth being victims and statistics at a young age, and in my opinion, due to the lack of proper programming and leadership. Today, we will be speaking out against these proposed changes to a program whose primarily objective, in my opinion, is to prevent our youth to have to speak out against violence and disturbances due to the result of programming not being where it should in the eyes of the people. And just as we saw in this year, no more than about one city council meeting ago, our youth have spoken out on how these programs have benefited them. I simply cannot imagine our youth having to speak out once again, but in this time, due to the lack thereof, because when you chop the head off, the body will fall. Let's remain proud, let's protect what we own, and let's keep our minds together. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We got Ali Harned, then Fitz Haanen, then Mary Rosinski.
Sorry. This is Fitz Haanen.
Welcome, Fitz.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council, Mayor, City Manager, City Clerk. I'm Ali Harned from the 2nd Ward. I'm here in front of you again, this time with the election in the rearview mirror, and wow, what an amazing result. Garnering more than 80% of the vote for preservation, we believe the overwhelming results might even be a mandate. We at Safe Hardly Clark are tremendously grateful to the people of Evanston for their extraordinary support of the referendum question, asking if they believe the city of Evanston should preserve and protect from demolition the only house on the lake owned by all of us, the Harley Clark House and Jen Stenson Gardens. We hope that you will all take seriously the results of the referendum because they clearly show that a vocal majority supports finding a solution that does not result in demolition. We are excited about the results in all wards because it reveals undeniable support across the city in every ward and in every precinct. I've heard that some of you are competitive, so here are the results by ward, in rank order, different than what Devon did. Ooh, okay, so in first place...
But we sort of saw it up there,
You
Alan.
did, okay.
I just want to make sure we try to keep with we got a minute here for everybody.
Okay.
But I think everybody up here, they all know their wards really well.
Okay,
They
well,
saw the
5th
data.
Ward won.
Yeah.
We're proud. Okay. Fitz is giving me his minute. Is that okay, Fitz? Okay, thanks, hon. So we recognize that council members have been put in a difficult position of having to vote on the demolition plan in an extremely short timeline. However, since the last time you took a vote about demolition, 2 very important data points have entered the equation. The unanimous rejection by the Preservation Commission of the application for a certificate of appropriateness of demolition, plus the 80% yes vote by your constituents across the city to preserve and protect the Harley Clerk buildings and grounds. What you may not know is that Save Harley Clerk has a subcommittee called the Save Harley Clerk Adaptive Reuse Task Force. They've been meeting for months and have lots of exciting information to share about the possibilities for Harley Clerk to become a valuable public asset, representing economic growth, job creation, cultural tourism, and lakefront equity for all. We believe that the best path forward at this point would be to end all discussion of demolition, full stop, as we have many more pressing things to work on in our city, as everyone is speaking about tonight. We urge the City Council to make an immediate resolution to mothball the Harley Clerk buildings and grounds for a set period of time. During that time, the newly formed Friends of Harley Clerk group can build on the excellent work of the Save Harley Clerk Adaptive Reuse Task Force, fundraise, and explore possibilities for Evanston's only public house on the lake. Friends of Harley Clerk will mindfully and proactively include the voices of stakeholders across the city so that this time around, all Evanstonians have a seat at the table in deciding the future of Harley Clerk. We remain hopeful that about the possibility that Harley Clerk, bless you, Harley Clerk can be an issue that brings us together rather than divides us. And in fact, I think it already has. It was so inspiring to talk to voters on the way in and out of polls for the last 2 weeks and to hear words of support and encouragement from Evanstonians in all wards. This has been an uplifting experience, and we've learned a lot. I love Evanston, and we look forward to turning Harley Clerk into something we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Fitz. All right. We've got Mayor Rudzinski, Jen Shader, and then Pastor Daniel Ruin.
Hi, I actually only had one thing to say. I'm going to give the rest of my time to Jen, and that the referendum really, I think, was a statement that people want a public lake house that everyone in this ward can use, and it's not just to save the building. The building is beautiful, but the use of it for all people in Evanston was the critical aspect here. Jen.
Thank you.
Mayor Haggerty, City Manager, and City Council. Jennifer Shader, I think you know me, 47-year resident of the 7th Ward. I'm grateful and proud to stand before you tonight among my fellow Evanstonians who came forth with the largest turnout in Evanston voter history. Kudos to our City Clerk's office and the others who worked so very hard to get out the vote. As I spoke to hundreds, if not thousands, of voters leading up to and on Election Day, I repeated what my late grandfather, Judge Shader, told me for so many years. Voting is not just our right, it's an extraordinary privilege. So thank you all. Tonight, while we focus on so many more important budget items, I'll remind you that we ask to partner with the city to create a self-sustaining, revenue-producing public facility that we can all be proud of. Our goal is to bring the community together while helping to create an economic generator that serves all of Evanston. We ask that you allow us to help lift the Harley fog some of you may be under. While I've loved working with Allie on the referendum campaign, my personal goal is to put Save Harley Clerk into retirement. Hopefully our work to prevent demolition is complete and our work can now continue as Friends of Harley Clerk. Our goal is to partner with the city, citizens, community, and business leaders across all ages, abilities, genders, races, and socioeconomic lines to follow the directive that the referendum set forth. I'll paraphrase Mayor Haggerty by saying more than 27,000 residents have basically said, try harder to save the mansion. And to quote Alderman Wilson on a different subject earlier during P&D, it's Evanston. There should be a way to do it. This should be our mandate. My hope now is that we can set aside the demolition conversation for good, mothball, transition to Friends of Harley Clerk, and come back shortly to discuss the Friends of Harley Clerk partnership with the city. I do want to stress that in the meantime, Save Harley Clerk is continuing its work, and much to my family's dismay, we haven't even taken a break. We just don't want to take away from the city's focus right now. Thank you, Council, for not just listening to your constituents, but by truly hearing them. And thank you, Evanstonians, for showing up for each other and for your city always.
Thank you, Jen. All right. We've got Pastor Daniel Ruin, then Alice Perry, and Roger Williams, and then Gail Schechner.
Pastor Daniel Ruin, Grace Lutheran Church, 9th Ward. I'm representing the Reverend Michael Neighbors and Rabbi Andrea London. We're the co-conveners of Prioritize Our People. We represent 16 community service agencies around Evanston, and you'll be hearing specifics from each portion of our handout, which I'll give to the clerk as soon as I'm finished, as some other folks come up. We're certainly encouraged, as the Reverend Neighbor said, about some of the changes that have been made up to now. Gibbs Morrison staying open, Fire Station number 4, encouraged about the emphasis on public safety and health. We're happy about the proposal for keeping more funds for Mental Health Board, but we're very concerned that it looks like still a 20% cut to mental health, especially for low-income families, people experiencing homelessness. To us, that's not a priority we think that needs to be more of a priority for those folks. And overall, this current budget process is very concerning to us. It's not transparent to the community regarding the way this whole budget is created. It shifts more tax burden onto citizens without a full explanation of how Evanston spends its money. It doesn't seek to expand ways for poorer residents to live in adequate housing, to receive important services. In other words, it seems to me like these changes that we would like to claim as wins are really just getting us back to baseline. It's what we were already promising, and it doesn't feel like a win when we're just giving people what we were already providing. We can do better. We can have a moral budget that expands our services, and we would like to be a part of that conversation. So please continue to prioritize our people, and I'll hand out this handout as other speakers come up.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, we got Alice Perry, and then Roger Williams, and then Gail Schechner.
Good evening, Alice Barry, 1630 Main Street. Here we are still talking about the city manager's still terrible idea to separate the effective manager of the Youth and Young Adult Division from his budget and staff. I read the workforce development plan, which answered none of the questions I consider most important. Why do this when we all know the division is doing extraordinary work and is a tremendous success? Why would anyone want to mess with a winning formula unless they have another agenda entirely? Why does the city manager who is white want to pull the rug out from under an effective manager who is black? The division saves lives. It saves futures of those who have been most marginalized in Evanston. City Council, I believe it is your clear duty to preserve the division as is and allow it to continue its very important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. All right, we got Roger Williams, Gail Schechner, and then Peg Har.
I'm Roger Williams, president of OPAL, Organization for Positive Action and Leadership, and I'm a part of the Prioritize Our People's Coalition. Just like a number of people have spoke about the Youth and Young Adult Program Division, it is a very, very successful program. Of course, my question is to the city manager. Why reorganize the Youth and Young Adult Program Division, and what is your rationale for doing so? In a recent survey, residents were asked to select the 10 programs that you believe to be the most important for the city to provide. The Youth and Young Adult Services Department ranked second highest out of a list of more than 50 city programs. In addition, its manager has received high job performance evaluation each of his 7 years. Now, we're told that its manager, Kevin Brown, will receive a promotion to another position in workforce development. But when you look closer, you'll find that this promotion, Mr. Brown will move from a position where he has 6 direct reports and manages a $1.6 million budget to workforce development where we have 0 direct reports and a $0 budget. What kind of promotion is that? What is really going on here? I don't know, but I do know that the victims in this apparent power play are at-risk youth and young adults in Evanston, a city that boasts about its diversity and equity. To the City Council, why reorganize a program and break up a team that has been delivering outstanding results year after year? Why destroy a safety net for Evanston's poorest and most vulnerable residents? So I asked again, Mr. City Manager, why reorganize the Youth and Young Adult Programs Division, and what is your rationale for doing so?
Thank you, Roger. Gail Schechner, Peg Har, James Engelman.
Good evening. My name is Gail Schechter. I'm here for the Addie Wyatt Center for Nonviolence Training and the Prioritize Our People Coalition. I'd like to suggest that what we have here is a difference in perspective. Are we talking about workforce development, or are we talking about nurturing our youth and young adults? The city manager argues in your memo provided to the council, quote, more needs to be done to build a workforce development plan that addresses those services that might not come through a division focused just on young people. But if your lens is the whole unsegmented person, you can turn that sentence around to more needs to be done to build a youth development plan that addresses those needs that might not come through a division focused on just the workforce. The city is taking the correct approach right now in its youth and young adult division. There's a reason why the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child, resonates. You really have two issues before you. One is, what is the best way to serve our most at-risk young people, and how would such a restructuring impact this? I would suggest that there should be a higher threshold of scrutiny in considering a restructure from something that already exists to something that is not yet a proven approach. So I would simply conclude by saying you have a model program under Kevin Brown's leadership. We have an apples to oranges comparison when we're looking at switching this to workforce development. Young people are more than economic units. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. All right, I'd ask again, because we have a lot of speakers this evening to get through, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If you hear the bell go off, if you can wrap it up in a couple seconds after that. If it happens to go off and you don't finish before the 1 minute mark. All right, welcome, Peg.
Thank you. As part of the Prioritize Our People Coalition, I want to expand on what Daniel Ruin said. We are very encouraged by some of the changes that are being suggested. However, a 20% cut in the mental health budget, especially for low-income families or people experiencing homelessness, is not a priority for the city. During the priority-based budget survey last summer, 62% of more than 3,000 respondents did not want the City Council to cut city funds to the Mental Health Board. It received the largest support of any item surveyed by the community to protect and not cut. During the last City Council budget discussion, the city manager reported that the survey results collected did not give them the information they had hoped for. The POP Coalition is very concerned that these cuts are being proposed because they are viewed as a number on the spreadsheet, not given the value they serve in our community. If city funds to the Mental Health Board are cut, the city will still be expected to pay the bill. Lower income people and families receiving police and EMS services cannot pay for that. The $500 to $1,000 per use is then paid by the city. So please consider not cutting. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, I know I've got James. Paul, were you part of that group? No, you weren't. Okay, James, you're up, James, and we'll get to you. So we've got James Engelman, Andrew Fisher, and then Meredith Dornicker.
Hi, I'm James Engelman from the 5th Ward. I'm trying for Brown. I was thinking for the budget thing, if the firemen could, when they come and pick up somebody, or if they're injured, we could raise the fee for the ambulance, and then when they come and for picking up a person who fell out of a wheelchair and a scooter, we could send them a bill too, because a lot of times in my building, there's a lot of people, the firemen come here a little bit often. So that's what I was thinking. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you for that suggestion, James. Next up,
Haggerty?
Yes, Paul.
I'm sorry, I was a part of that.
Oh, okay. All right. So why don't you speak now, Paul?
Okay, so I'll make this quick. In reading the document about the workforce development as proposed by the city manager, I wound up with a huge question mark. I can't answer the big question, why, which many of my predecessors have spoken about. I can only say that what I said the last time I was here, you've got a rare thing here, a good program run by good, effective people. All you have to do is leave it alone. One other thing you have to do is to answer that big question mark for yourselves. Individually, I think you need to explore what's going on behind the scenes. What's the subtext? If you can figure out what that is, you might be able to make a wise decision as to whether to pursue this or not. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your service. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Now we're back. You've got Andrew, then Meredith Dorniker, then Laura Winston. On my list, let's see, I had James, then I jumped to Paul, Andrew. Okay, or we can go to Meredith. Just give your name when you come on up here in case.
Thank you. My name is Meredith Dorniker. I'm Bob Dorniker's daughter and one of the many members of my family who are here today to support him. As you've already mentioned, my dad has dedicated over 30 years to the city of Evanston. I use the word dedicated because my dad didn't just work here. He spent over half his life caring deeply about this community, his coworkers, and his job responsibilities. I have several anecdotes, which I won't share with you today, that detail how much he did truly care and how much time and effort he spent working for the city of Evanston and for the good of the city. It's unfortunate that Wally wasn't able to share any of those with you today. Unfortunately, my dad is not leaving the city of Evanston at the time or on the terms in which I know he wanted to. However, he has so much to be proud of. The relationships he's built, the projects he's led, and perhaps most importantly, the integrity he's demonstrated throughout his time here. In the last few weeks, he has received a generous outpouring of support and appreciation. He has heard from colleagues, heads of departments and facilities, city council members, and community members, thanking him for the time he spent with the city and expressing sadness about his departure. It has meant so much to both my dad and our family. I know that my dad is so grateful for the many relationships he has developed over the years, especially for those who have been here supporting him today. Thank you for taking the time to acknowledge him tonight and for his many contributions.
Thank you, Meredith. All right, Andrew, and then we've got Laura Winston, then Leslie Williams.
Hi, I'm Andrew Fisher. I live at 1580 Sherman Avenue. I've been a long-time Evanston resident of over 50 years. I'm here to speak on a slightly different subject. They'll be coming before you on December 3rd. I'm here in support of the Evanston Climate Action Plan. With all the terrible hurricanes that have recently hit down in the Carolinas, and right now all the terrible wildfires raging out in California, I definitely believe climate action is a thing that we definitely should take action on, and I believe Evanston should be one of the forward-looking communities instead of looking backward, that Illinois and the nation can be proud of to begin addressing this issue. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Andrew. Laura Winston, and then we've got Leslie Williams, and then Claire Kelly.
Good evening. I'm Laura Winston, and I live in the 7th Ward, and I'm also here, like Andrew, to speak on behalf of sustainability. I moved here to Evanston 4 years ago, and I am really so proud to live in a city that was a founding member of the Mayor's National Climate Action Agenda, and who, among other recognitions, has achieved a 4-star community rating. Such success is due to the city's commitment in past budgets to your long-term planning and investment in the Office of Sustainability, and I'm particularly grateful for your continued support in the current budget for the excellent work of Kumar Jensen and continuing that. So I'm here to speak on behalf of sustainability. I ask that you continue Evanston's tradition and leadership to fund sustainability-related programs in the budget meeting next Monday, and to pass the Climate Action Resiliency Plan when it comes before the City Council in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We got Leslie Williams, and then Claire Kelly, and then Michelle Hayes.
Good evening, Leslie Williams, 7th Ward, and I'm also the proud mother of a summer youth employment program graduate. I'm here to express my concern about the proposed reorganization of youth services, which would move the current manager, Kevin Brown, into workforce development and turn other aspects of the youth and young adult programming over to Ken Cherry at Fleetwood Jourdain. This change would transfer the full-time oversight of a critical program with multiple staff over to a manager with other full-time responsibilities and would divorce youth employment from all other supportive youth services. Mr. Bobowitz's November 8th memo refers to Goal 3 of Youth Services Strategic Plan
plan regarding employment and workforce development. But the youth department has 5 other significant goals involving education, mental and physical health, civic engagement, and violence prevention. The strength of this program is its continuum of services across all these areas. Separating workforce development would weaken that vital connection. While I applaud the city manager's intention to create an Office of Workforce Development and Innovation, I question why this necessitates downgrading an extremely successful youth services program to a mere appendage of recreation. The vast amount of responsibilities shouldered by Mr. Brown and his team cannot effectively be shoehorned into the work of another department. While I have tremendous respect for Mr. Cherry, it is unrealistic to expect that one person can manage a rec center and simultaneously oversee the youth services division and give it the necessary level of involvement and attention it currently receives. It also seems clear that the manager of youth services should have a strong background in violence prevention and be familiar with the Department of Juvenile Justice program model. Yes, we need a strong workforce development program, but it will not be effective if it weakens our existing youth services. The summer youth program and other career services for youth work because they are part of a strong continuum of service administered by staff with training and expertise in youth psychology and who have built trust with our young people. Please rethink this proposal.
Thank you. Again, if you hear this little thing go off, that means I need you to wrap it up real quick, please. We got Claire Kelly, Michelle Hayes, and then Joey Rogers.
So as we speak about needs and priorities this evening, I have to say I'm just incredibly, as we speak about needs and priorities, I'm just really baffled, as are people across town, as to why we are putting our city into such incredible debt for a rec center that is essentially focused on hockey, an incredibly expensive sport. I teach at Evanston High School, where about 40% approximately of our students are low income. You know, if we were talking about a swimming pool so all our kids could learn to swim and enjoy our beautiful lakefront, then okay, maybe. But we are all across town scratching our heads about this. And so I have a couple of questions. This is going to cost us, just for the debt service, we're talking millions of dollars a year in debt service alone, becoming a permanent part of our budget. So in 20 or 30 years, we will have to issue another bond to replace the old one at rates that are definitely going to be higher than the old bonds because rates are rising. And if Evanston keeps issuing debt, our credit rate will drop, our rating will drop. So in 20 years from now, that debt service will be even higher. I'm sorry, I have a couple more questions. Currently on the first tranche, we're already at about $1.5 million, already adding to our budget. What is the city's plan to actually pay off the Crown-related debt? Is the expectation that the new bonds will be issued upon expiry? Has the city considered that rates will likely be much higher and that our credit rating will be lower, resulting in even more debt service for citizens to cover, again, primarily for hockey? And how much will Crown realistically generate in revenue? Will it even come close to covering its debt service? And how much ice time? I know we're getting $1 million from Northwestern, but just how much ice time will Northwestern enjoy for that $1 million?
Claire, we got to wrap it.
All right. Well, I have many more questions. I will email them to you, as do many people across town about this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got Michelle Hayes, Joey Rogers, and Albert Gibbs. I don't see him.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, City Clerk. I, as you know, run a Facebook group called Back on Their Feet, where I perform an awful lot of social services for the city of Evanston free of charge. I was a little disturbed because I heard someone had made an offhanded comment about the city of Evanston not being responsible for social services, that we should provide infrastructure and police and fire, but that social services should be taken care of by volunteers and organizations around the city. Let me tell you, I hate my job. I love the people that I work with. I love them on both sides of the coin, but I hate that there are people in Evanston scrabbling for diapers, living in cars, who have to go to court because their car was towed, and that put them in a financial situation that will wind them up on the street. Those people are citizens. I spoke last time about how 24% of Evanston is in the bottom 2 quintiles of income. Those people need your representation. The places where they are represented are in the Youth Services Division, are by Victim Services in the Police Department, and are by the Health Department. And if you cut those services, that shows a lack of thinking in terms of there, but for the grace of God go I. And it is a crying shame. I had to speak to someone who is an Evanston Township, a former Evanston Township student who's being threatened with violence, but who moved out to Des Plaines because she couldn't afford to live here anymore. And Des Plaines does not have a victim services department. So we are trying to find our way through a maze of social services that are designed for domestic violence and not for this purpose. What we have is special and important. Let's hang on to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We've got Joey Rogers, Albert Gibbs, then Vivian Chow.
Good evening. My name is Joey Roger. I'm a resident of the First Ward. We've put you all in an impossible situation, totally impossible. And I'm here to say to both the elected officials and to the city staff, thank you. Thank you for the time you've spent on this budget process, for creating and reviewing document after document. I tried to download your packet for tonight. 658 pages, I think, were in the council packet for tonight. Thank you for listening to people's passionate concerns. Thank you for your sense of priorities and for listening to ours. Keeping us all happy isn't possible. I probably won't agree with all your decisions. You already know how I feel about dismissing the victim services positions. But I'm here tonight simply to say I appreciate your care, your integrity, and your commitment to helping us all make a stronger Evanston. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. We got Vivian Chow, Doreen Price, then Betty Esther.
Good evening. My name is Vivian Chu. I'm a resident of Evanston. I'm also a practicing physician. I had my own practice in Evanston for the past 9 years. I'm here to voice my support for the Youth and Outreach Program. 2 years ago, I was very proud to work on the referendum to unfortunately raise taxes, but to support our children. 90% of Evanston supported our children. That was amazing to me. Tears came to my eyes when we were sitting in the bar with the rest of the referendum folks, and I could not believe that it was 90% of our town. Oak Park had like 50, 60, so we did beat Oak Park at something, Mr. Reed, so yay. However, I believe that 90% of Evanston supports this youth and outreach program. One thing you learn quickly in the hospital as a young physician is that the doctors are not the most important people in the hospital, it's the social worker. You find the social worker, you make them your friend. Health is nothing if you do not have a stable home, if you do not have mental health, if you can live in a safe place, if you have a job and you have a home. Keep this division functioning. It is not broken. You will ruin the health of these children, and 90% of Evanstonians support this program, just as they voiced 2 years ago in the referendum. If this is cut, I would seriously question the direction where the city is going. It would be a slap in the face to Evanston's children, families, and community. I urge you to support the retention of this youth program. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Doreen Price.
Hello hello tonight. Would like to address or what happened to be a connection that I saw in the two presentations that will be discussed by the council. And one has to do with the brochure on investing in local businesses, and the other one is about 2 lots that are now $1 available. If I could buy one, I could make money off of it so I could live in my home, I thought immediately. And then the other one is with regard to the meter reader. If you can hire 2 meter readers because you can generate income. So $100,000 generates $400,000. So every accountant has their ways of dealing with things. And if that's the argument, then I will present an argument you haven't heard maybe before. With regard to the economic incentives, there's 4 aspects that I found immediately. When I looked for grants that are available to people who would like to rehab or avoid foreclosure, there's none available. Solution, this is cutting to the quick. The solution, and I can give you numbers to back it up, it's huge in terms of how much money we avoid using. That would be more available affordable housing. If we make sure we hire a new assistant director of HHS and make sure they do a gold star version, which is equivalent to businesses, but for people, and do a gold star version of keeping people in their homes and not having the misery and the increased need for social services that happens when people are displaced and they die at a younger age, and I'm trying to live a long time. So thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. We want you to live a long time, too. Betty Esther. We got Betty, then Margaret Roth, then Judy Kemp. Or it could be Margaret Roth.
Good evening. I agree with most of the speakers that spoke tonight about the changing the workforce development program. I read the memo dated November the 8th, workforce development plan. All I can say, it lacked in this plan a lot of things that those people that you're saying that need the skill that you're going to get the job. No plan about transportation, no plan or resource as to who's going to do this training, how are you going to connect them to industry, which we are not building here or bringing here to the city. No plan to connect them to the jobs that is out west and so forth. And Cook County had a referendum that was, don't know whether it was passed, but it was talking about increasing the minimum wage. But something happened tonight here in this council that disturbed me when we were saying goodbye to Bob Durner. I saw him, read that, told him that we at Gilbert Park really will miss him. He was a big help in revitalizing that park. But when we came into the council, and if you were sitting at home, you would saw a web of people that was black, that didn't come forth. Those people were with the workforce development, the group that we are talking about here. They came to honor him, to say goodbye to him, but they was not allowed a call to the podium. Whether they didn't get on the agenda or not, that's not the issue. The issue is a respect that we were saying goodbye to something and his colleagues came to say goodbye. They should have been allowed to do their presentation. So for us here in Evanston, for diversity, that was a black eye. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Margaret? Then we got Judy Kemp, then Toby Sachs, then Ray Friedman.
I'm Margaret Rhoda. I'm a social worker who's been working in the district for over 25 years now, and I'm here to speak on the behalf of our youth services under the direction of Kevin Brown. I work in the school district, obviously, and worked in every single school in this district over my 25 years. We have a lot of kids who do not have what they need, and what they need is the programs and the outreach that we're getting from Kevin Brown and his crew. If I have a kid who is hard to reach, if I have a family who's impossible to come in, the first person, I pick up the phone, I call one of the guys there. They come out and they're instrumental in trying to do therapy and trying to get those kids there. I would have lost a lot of kids a lot earlier had they not been there. And I think reorganizing a system that works, when I need to pick up the phone, I really don't have anybody else to pick up the phone and call. My principal here, Mr. Harries, who's also at Nichols Middle School, who couldn't stay here, was also going to speak on behalf of the team of people that come. They come at lunchtimes, they come provide boys groups, they come provide mentoring, they do home visits, they connect kids with FAM, they connect kids all over the city. And I would say to mess with something that's working would be a really foolish thing for you guys to do at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. All right, we got Judy Kemp, Toby Sachs, Ray Friedman.
Hi. I'm Judy Kemp. I'm here to talk about the arts. And Toby has ceded his time to me, but I don't think we're going to need it all. I'm going to talk fast. We are delighted to see that in the latest draft of the budget, a portion of the arts funding, the funding for grants, has been reinstated. And yet, although it's such a tiny part of the city's budget, it has a positive and important impact on all of our citizens and is crucial to the quality of life in our city. The arts have the ability to bring people together for a common purpose, which so few other things do. At this time, when there seems to be so much division in our lives, we need all things that can uplift us and make us think and feel more deeply and that are welcoming to all. It is interesting to note that in a national survey, 72% of Americans agreed that, quote, the arts unify our communities regardless of age, race, and ethnicity. That being said, we hope that you will also consider setting aside some additional money for coordinator support to the Arts Council and to facilitate collaboration between arts organizations, artists, and other nonprofits with the city. As you are aware, over 60 community leaders, artists, and cultural organizations signed onto a letter asking you to return a portion of that support. Many of them are here tonight, and if the art people will all stand up, we'll see who you are, to demonstrate how important it is to the city to allocate resources to maintain Evanston's commitment to a creative outlet for all of its citizens. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, everybody else that's out there standing. Appreciate the teamwork and the collaboration there. Just one speaker and recognition of everybody else. We got Ray Friedman, Robert Ryan, and Angelia Bianca. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Haggerty. Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, City Clerk Reed, and City Council. There seems to be a huge disconnect between your proposed budget and most of the Evanston residents. You asked us to participate in your priority-based budget, and then you did not act on the wishes of the residents. You keep talking about cutting police and fire personnel, closing a fire station, and cutting health care programs. This is to balance a $7.5 million deficit for 2019. First, we need to discuss why we have a budget crisis 3 years in a row. Please do not be offended by this message we are trying to convey to you. And listening to public comments for the past month concerning the 2019 budget, everyone has said pretty much the same thing. And no, not from the same people. We need to discuss Crown, why now, and why 50 million? Why the extra 35 million? And again, why now in the middle of a budget crisis? Same question about new street lights, Fountain Square, new theater, 130 Chicago Avenue for $2 million, 27 new vehicles, 284 new trees, just to name a few projects not on your priority-based budget and not reviewed or discussed with your residents. Again, don't be offended, as this is some of the info of some of the expenses taken from the past year's City Council meetings. Just the above items alone total approximately $95 million. With all this money that we have to spend, why would we be talking about cutting essential city services and programs? After the city has figured out that the total debt service for 2018 is $30,703,260, we are asking if the City of Evanston will issue municipal tax levy. If so, what will the percentage be, and what will be the dollar amount? Obviously, there is a big piece of this puzzle that we are missing here. When we are spending well over $100 million in non-essential goods and services, how can we possibly have a budget crisis?
Thank you, Ray.
And 3 years in a row. Some things are just not adding up. Please explain. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We got Robert Ryan, Angelia Bianca, then Neil Gambo, then Farrell Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. And oddly, Mayor, you pronounced my first name correctly, which is a very rare occurrence. So my name is Angelia Bianca. I am here in support of the Youth and Young Adult Division. I work at the University of Illinois. I work in violence prevention here in Chicago. Well, we're in Evanston now, but in Chicago, literally around the world, throughout the United States, and even I've done work early on in the infancy of the program under Kevin Brown. I now I travel as far as Abu Dhabi, South America, New York, everywhere, because violence affects everybody. At-risk youth are at-risk youth for a reason. We have to treat the root causes. My point here, and I want to wrap it up because I know you have so many speakers, but my point here is now I implement programs across the globe, and I have seen them succeed, and then they're doing great, and now everybody wants to have 5 million meetings, and then they fail. I've seen so many good, great programs with wonderful leadership, a great team with relationships with the at-risk youth. Yes, jobs are very important, but if you do not treat the root causes of an at-risk youth or young adult, a job is not going to make that better. I can guarantee you this. I've been doing this work for a long time, and I totally I support Kevin Brown, the team. They have the relationships, as you've heard from counselors. Even now, still to this day, I get calls from random mothers, and they're like, I live in Evanston, and who do I call? I call Kevin Brown. One of his guys call me. I reroute later that day. Did you follow up? Yeah, everything's done. I've met with the kid. We're working on this. So if you break this team up and you dismantle and revise and whatever it is you're going to do, unfortunately, you're going to be making a grave mistake. I guarantee it. And I, from my bottom of my heart, I hope you do not do that. I hope that you care enough about violence prevention, because that's the root cause.
Thank you. Angelia.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
We got Neil Gambo, Farrell Wilson, Lorraine Dostal.
Good evening, I'm Neil Gambo, and I've been working with Kevin Brown and his youth services group on workforce development, as mentioned earlier, and is preparing these kids for life after high school and employment. Workforce development, this is what his organization should have been named some time ago, because that's what they do. They prepare youth for life after high school. And when you're looking at, renaming this group, workforce development is a process. It's not a one-shot deal. And that process has to start early enough so that young people know what they're getting into when they get into the employment arena. And we hope that the organization is not broken up, because, again, the continuity of workforce development efforts is not something you can just rifle shot and hope for the best. It needs to be a continuum.
Thank you, Neil. You may get an award. I think you're the first one to finish up in less than a minute, Neil. Thank you. Farrell Wilson.
Yes, hi. Farrell Wilson, co-founder and president of the board of Theo Ubukwe Cabaret Theater at 721 Howard Street, formerly of Rogers Park. 14 years in the business. We're very thrilled to be coming to Evanston, and we're just about there. We're just waiting for our liquor license, and we would like to thank you very much. I wish we could have a little song and dance for you tonight.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm Lorraine Dostal. I'm the secretary of the board for the Theo Ubukwe Cabaret Theater. We'd like to thank the City Council and the mayor for their support of our project. We're very excited to be coming to Howard Street. It seems a little frivolous after all of the important issues you have to address here to be talking to you about dinner, drinks, and a show, but that's what we do. It's the arts, and we hope that, when you have time for a little fun, that you'll come and see us.
All right, so put in a plug for when you're going to open here. You got a couple seconds left.
Yes, we've got opening night, I think, is December 5th.
Here, I'll do that part.
Okay.
December 7th, we open up, and subscriptions can be found at www.theo_u.com.
All right, it's great to have you in town. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we have two more speakers tonight, and that's going to wrap up public comment. We've got Michael McLean and then John McClendon.
Michael McLean. I'm here for 1571 Maple. I only signed up because I wasn't sure what the process was for the hearing after the. Will we be able to speak? Well, I just wanted to make a clarification that that we have actually requested 55 parking spaces and one unit at 60% AMI rental level, as opposed to the staff's recommendation of 70, and that this is as a direct result of empirical knowledge that we now have of the building, as opposed to the philosophy of the Emerson building was blocked to fit 70% of their need, so we have to do it here. Emerson's not built, it's not occupied, it's not proven, and we have real results, real tenants, and few cars. So I just wanted to make that clear to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And then John McClendon. Is John here?
John's with me, so he'll.
All right. Well, that concludes public comment. Thank you, everybody, for. Oh, Mr. Gibbs, your name was on here. Come on up. You're going to be our last one, Albert Gibbs. No, you know what? You're right. I missed it. I see your name up here. I missed it. It was a mistake on my part, sir. I don't claim to be perfect. I mispronounce people's names, and I accidentally missed your name. I am sorry, sir.
Well, that's all right.
If you would like to accuse me of something that I accidentally did.
I won't take it personally.
All right?
I won't take it personally, but I did sign up to speak.
I know you signed up, and I said you signed up.
Okay, I did. I won't take it personally. But if I may say this before I go further, a friend of mine gave me a call, if you won't hold this time against me, and he told me I need to clarify that when I'm speaking like this and saying what I'm saying, that he's my lifelong friend, one of my best friends since 5 years old. Cecily, I'm not talking about you. I got to make that clear then. All right, so your dad doesn't kill me. You know, I love the ground he walks on. That's my buddy. Getting to the point, though, there's A17 for introduction, A17. A18, 19, 20, 21, and 28. And it seems like all of these things were about increases of parking and various other things to raise money, I guess. But it's going to really hurt low-income, poor, seniors, fixed-income people. They really can't afford it now, so they won't be able to afford it after these increases are installed. So you're really pricing citizens out who can afford actually to come downtown because they can't afford your parking and all the different other increases that you're putting on them. So I don't find this to be something that's called inclusion for the simple reason it reeks of disqualification when you have the well-to-do folks that can afford to pay all these parkings and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't appear like you want others that are poor, seniors that can't afford it, folks on fixed income. Doesn't seem like you want them in your downtown Evanston. But if the parking costs, when you do these kind of things, it really throws up a red flag to your citizenry. You know, you speak of diversity and inclusion in one breath, but it's cost prohibitive for the seniors, young folks, and those on fixed incomes because they can't afford to park in downtown Evanston. I'll say this last bit here and I'm done. When you take programs that have such a profound impact as the youth and young adult programs here in Evanston and the youth employment and some other programs I understand that are on the chopping block like senior taxi programs, you know, these folks can't afford to get to doctors. You're subsidizing them with tickets that they can get cab rides. Well, you're talking about really cutting that? Well, I'll tell you what, that's something else. Let's see if I can read this because I'm not a fast guy. But programs such as this that has gotten high marks, as well awards and recognition for what it brings to the community, when you're threatened with this to be dissolved in order to balance a budget, it seems like something is terribly wrong with this elimination process and those overseeing it. Wally, I do disagree with your plan to split up this team. And you do owe this community an explanation about why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this? I don't speak down about Reverend Cherry. He's a qualified man, to me, personally. but I don't have a vote. You understand? Mr. Norman and some of the others, there, I've let them know personally, I think you're great. I've seen where they have had a profound effect on shootings in this town. You may not have recognized it, but these people have had a profound effect from when we recognized shootings that put Evanston on the map in a bad time. I'll be right done. You know, in a bad light. These kids have had an awful lot. I don't mean kids, but these young people have had an awful lot to do with that as well. So I disagree with what you're doing here. If it's not broken, why fix it? You know, because to me it seems like it's very hypocritical to say, well, the programs work fantastic, but we're going to split them up. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs.
For everyone that only selects the few that are damaged by your budget cuts, balance your budget on the backs of programs supporting blacks, brown, minority citizens shows a disrespect to that part of the Evanston community. The value of any humane society rests in how the better off reaches for, embraces for their weak, their less than, their poor, by standing up to protect and include the same in a loving and respectful way that demonstrates that we are all for one and one for all, not the haves against the have-nots.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your comments today and for speaking so passionately on a variety of issues that the council has before them. I would say we do need to, all of us, work on hitting the time that we set. And I'm not the best presider of these because I'm not dropping a hammer somehow because I don't quite know how to do that and cut everybody off when you're in the midst of something important that you're trying to say. But let's all try to work better to try to get this done. It is 10:15, and we're now going to start the special order of business and then the consent agenda. So on special order of business, we have SP1, one item which is the 2019 proposed budget. We have been talking about this for quite some time. The city manager, based on our last discussions, has brought back a revised budget to the council. And I have asked the city manager if he would go through this budget in a similar fashion as we did earlier, which is going through the revenue side of things and specifically highlighting the changes that he's proposing based on our prior feedback to him. We will have a discussion about that, and then we'll have him go through the expenses. Before you start that, city manager, I've got one light on from Alderman Nguyen.
I did want to make a suggestion, but I'll wait till the city manager finishes his presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. City manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to go through the revisions that were made. It's difficult to start after impassioned comments by residents about the budget without reflecting on one number, and that number is 805. We have 805 full-time positions in the city. Those individuals come to work every day and do what they can to make this a good place. They work in our administration, they work in our law department, our administrative services department, our community development department, our police department, our fire department, our health department, our public works department, and our Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. This budget funds the work of those 805 individuals. This budget, as proposed, has direct impacts on those 805 individuals. We do a lot of things for a lot of people, and we're very proud of the things that we do. These have been very difficult discussions, but I just want to remind you that there's 805 of us that are working so hard on behalf of all of you in this community. And while these decisions and my recommendations are difficult, there is a very large team of people who come here every day to do the best they can for the residents of Evanston. The budget balancing worksheet, what we've done this evening, and I'll turn the light off so you can see a little better, is highlight in green those additions to the budget balancing worksheet from which we've been working off of, and then we have made subtractions where appropriate as well. So moving forward with revenue adjustments, the voters of Evanston have very wisely decided to move forward with a real estate transfer tax. You have an ordinance before you this evening. Once that ordinance is adopted, that change will take effect in January. We are estimating that will bring $700,000 in new revenue into the general fund. I think, have been talking of a number that was around $850, Hitesh. I think that was the number that we have been talking. We are asking to budget about $700,000. We are unclear what the market will do at the end of this year. Will that bring in some additional transfers that we might not otherwise see? So we think it's prudent to move forward with the $700,000. Next is a proposed increase to the city's property tax levy. We have increased the property tax levy approximately 2% over the last several years. And Ms. Lewis-Lakin, I don't know if you have that table handy that you could bring up to show what that number has looked like over the last a few years. So it's the second table, Kate. So 1.4, 2.1, 2.4, 2.1. The difference in previous years is we had said that the property tax increase was going to be directly related to capital debt and pension costs. This year, the goal was to do this all without a property tax levy, so there was no dollar amount included there. So at this point, in order to continue the services that the council and community have indicated they would like to see continued, we're proposing a 2% increase in the levy, and again, that is a very comparable number that we have seen the last several years. So, Ms. Lewis-Lakin, we can go back to the thank you. The council has requested that we add 2 parking enforcement officers. So the next line here is the increased ticket revenue. So you'll see a corresponding increase in expense in a few moments, but $400,000 to the general fund with those 2 additional parking enforcement officers. Next, parking fund revenues, which would be split 50-50. So the dollars you're seeing here are just the dollars for the general fund. Increased surface parking lot monthly fees, $30 from $60 to $90. And then Sunday parking permit enforced 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. I believe there were some portions of the document for this that said 12 o'clock. That was incorrect. We are proposing to move forward with 1 o'clock. If the council wishes to do 12, but I believe, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the discussion was 1 o'clock at your last meeting. Next is going down the list. We have the Gibbs Morrison Cultural Center that is crossed off, no longer to be considered. Next in green is the transportation network tax, increasing that from 20 cents to 45 cents. We've adjusted here the estimated revenue from $375,000 to $280,000. The ordinance that was introduced this evening had a amendment to it to exempt carpools from the increase, and I believe ADA rides entirely. Ms. Lewis-Lakin, Mr. Desai, the carpools would be exempt entirely, or just the increase would not happen for the carpools?
20 cents.
Just the increase. Next, we are looking at removing the block party permit. I think the council spoke of nickel and diming, and in my sense that falls into that category, as does the increase in dumpster permits. As we've been able to balance through the budget, we are proposing to not transfer $100,000 from the sewer fund to leave that fund available for improvements. Next, in green at the bottom, an increase in ambulance fees. This was discussed in committee. The committee asked us to come back for some additional information, so the committee is recommending that the ordinance making the change be introduced and then returned to the committee for additional discussion next week. We anticipate that being $400,000. Next, a transfer from the Special Assessment Fund. This was a one-time transfer, the only one-time transfer included in the proposed budget, so we're proposing to remove that at this time. Next, on the expense side, so total revenue adjustments, Kate, before we go too far, $4,841,641. On the expense side, we are looking to replace what was proposed to be cut in the Cultural Arts Administration to replace that $50,000. That is the only change proposed in the city manager's budget. No change in the law department budget. The only change in the administrative services budget is, again, the addition of the 2 parking enforcement officers. Community development, no changes as proposed. Health and Human Services, reduce the mental health board funding. Currently, that is funded current year at $736,373 rather than a $250,000 reduction, proposing a $150,000 reduction. An elimination of 3 full-time human services advocates. The council asked that a representative from the YWCA attend the meeting tonight, and I believe she is present. Here somewhere. There you are. Hi. Thank you for staying. And so she'll be able to answer questions along with Director Thomas Smith and Chief Eddington at the conclusion of my presentation. The vital records services costs, we are moving forward with the proposal to retain vital records within the health department, have that service be offered by existing staff 3 days a week. We believe that that will work. The incumbent position individual in vital records left us last week. Unfortunately, in her departure, there was some miscommunication with the state of Illinois. We are working to clear that miscommunication up regarding the moving forward with providing those services, and we should have that resolved here over the next few days. And then we are also proposing to move forward with the addition of a management analyst. I heard from the council and the community a concern about both the public health educator and the assistant director position being eliminated. Believe that adding a management analyst will allow the department to continue to go after grants and provide other needed administrative support for the health department. In the police department, eliminating the addition of a civilian community engagement specialist. While I believe that this would really be groundbreaking for us in the community to really reach out in a very specific way using the Everbridge software that we have. Clearly, with other competing issues in the budget, we'll continue to work on that with a new chief and hopefully come back with other options over the course of the next year. The elimination of the 5 police officer positions, I'm proposing that be withdrawn from consideration, and instead we go back to the model which we've currently had this year of holding 4 police officer positions vacant. And that is the only other changes in the police department. In the fire department, proposing that we no longer consider the closure of Fire Station 4, but we continue with the hold of 4 firefighter paramedic positions vacant in order to make those holds work and to be a little bit closer to budget, proposing an increase in the fire department's overtime budget of $264,680, which offsets some of the savings, but I think allows us to have a more realistic fire department overtime budget. And then finally, adding to the fire department budget some money to assist us with looking at costs associated with providing fire services. I think at this point I'm not prepared to give the council a specific plan as to what we would do, but I would ask that some money be put aside to provide some flexibility in looking at that, and I think during the first quarter of next year we'll be able to come back to you with a more specific plan. So this is money that we would not spend until the council has had the benefit of hearing a little bit more about what the plans are, looking at costs associated with providing fire service. Parks and Recreation, really no change from what we have largely discussed, other than the Gibbs Morrison piece is off the table. No change in Public Works Agency. Citywide, in order to cover the budget gap, I am proposing that the 2.6% dollar amount that was budgeted for a general wage increase for all employees next year be removed. And so you see the line items for the various bargaining units. Of course, this is up to collective bargaining. We will work diligently with our partners in the represented unions to achieve this. But I must be honest with you that it is collective bargaining, and this is not by action of the council solely, and so we will be mindful of that as we move forward. We believe that this budget is constructed in such a way that should there be any adjustment, we would be able to come back to you and address that. The auto allowance. The auto allowance is a benefit that is received by our senior managers and some of our supervisors. I believe that in these difficult budget times, it's important to reduce that dollar amount. However, I am uncomfortable at this point reducing it any further. It was a reduction of 50%. The feedback that I received from many of our folks that are really on the line every day with delivering the services that you need delivered, our senior managers are already not going to see pay increase, already seeing an increase to their health care, which other employee groups will not see. So rather than a 50% reduction in the auto allowance, I'm proposing just a 25% reduction. And then finally, an increase in transfer to the insurance fund. The fund remains challenged, as you all know, and through these changes, I think it's prudent to increase that transfer by an additional $500,000. So with that, expense adjustments are $2.8 million. Other items in green, no GWI for union employees in other funds. Again, we've been talking solely about the general fund. In the parking fund, changes, increased service parking lot permit fee from $30 from 60 to 90, increased Sunday parking meters from 1 to 9, increased parking meters citywide from 1 to 150, the waiver of the convenience fee for maximum time on the parking app. Again, from the discussion the council had about these adjustments, it was suggested we look for ways to use the app as a way to help minimize some of those impacts on the parking meter adjustments. So by waiving the convenience fee for the maximum time, so if you're in a 2-hour zone, you pay for 2 hours rather than paying the fee, Ms. Dorley, of 35 cents for the 2 hours, you would just pay for the 2-hour straight time of the meter. And then increased parking meter revenue due to maximum time charges. We think that will change people's behavior and create some additional revenue, which will, interestingly enough, then offset that waiver of the convenience fees. We've looked at other jurisdictions. I think this is not just wishful thinking. I think we have seen this behavior occur in other communities that have the parking app. Is that the bottom of the sheet? I think that it is. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, these are difficult decisions that you have. You'll note that the $1.5 million for transfers to the reserve is still there, and the $1 million for Crown. I think it's extraordinarily important to bake in the Crown debt service. There are other ways it could be handled, but this is a cost that is not going away, and I think that this proposed budget allows you to be able to do that. And the contribution to the general fund reserve, again, I still believe the full amount is necessary. We need to make sure that this budget is as strong as possible, that it's as balanced in revenues and expenditures, but rainy days will continue to come. And the state of Illinois is entering a new phase of its governance with a new governor. The state of Illinois has to deal with some of its structural problems. They've kicked the can for 4 solid years, and they can no longer do that. So I think it's very important to maintain those reserves. So with this new proposal, we do that. It impacts 805 employees that serve you in this community every day. I think it is a balanced, fair budget, and I think it is one we can live with, and I hope that you will entertain favorably. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wally. And thank you to the city staff. I think you guys have done a really good job listening to the conversation of the council, and I think this version 2 of the proposed 2019 budget is while difficult, better than the last version we saw. So I appreciate that. Wally, before we've got some lights going on, before we do that, I just want to make sure everybody out here in the audience and at home understands where we are in the overall process. Today is November 12th. We've got to get a budget adopted. We're on our second version. So take us through when we've introduced at committee. I know it's on the agenda tonight to introduce a lot of the ordinance changes we need.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, fees and charges, many of them require ordinances, and so those that do are on for first reading this evening. The adoption of the budget, however, is by resolution. So it is my hope that the council will react and provide input to what you have before you. My hope is that we're close. If we're able to come to a conclusion this evening on the larger policy questions, then we would be able to bring a resolution to you for adoption at your November 19th meeting. The ordinances would also then be available to you. You do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, November 26th, and then one final meeting scheduled for the month of December, for December 10th. It has been the council's practice to adopt the budget usually the Monday of Thanksgiving week, leaving a little bit of flexibility should it be needed for the following week. I feel pretty confident that we're close, so that either adoption would either come on the 19th or the 26th.
Okay, thank you. One other question on the revenue side of things. I know that we talked about adding in the additional tax on bed and breakfasts, which are exempted right now. Did that add anything to the revenue, or was it just sort of not even material enough to show up there?
I don't know that we have a good number.
Okay.
I'll look to the budget staff.
So we are changing the ordinance to do that, but it didn't result in anything. Okay, that's fine. And who knows what the status of that will be even a year from now. Okay.
Our preference would be not to put a number on it and live with it for a year and see what it truly is. Regardless, it would be, I would say, Mr. Desai, wild guess, under 50, probably under 25,000, and so I think that we can live without a budgeted number if we need to make an adjustment for such a small number for the overall budget. I don't know that it's material.
Okay. Can we? Do we want to take it the way we took it last time, or do we want to have a free-for-all up here? Which is, last time we sort of took it structured. Okay, let's talk about anything on the revenue side, and then we went to the expense side. My suggestion would be we do it sort of the same way. Otherwise, I'm just concerned everybody's going to say, well, I got an issue on this one, and I got an issue there.
That made sense before. I think we
Okay,
should
so let's do that. I know I've got some lights on here, but let's go up to the revenue. And if you've got revenue and I see some lights on, we'll take it there. So Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the city staff for the modifications that have happened. Thank you to everyone in Evanston for voting for the transfer tax increase and understanding what it did. So I am very, very concerned about the mental health funding issue, and I would like us to not cut that at all, if we can. And so I made some notes here in terms of understanding what ways we could add back in that $100,000. And I'm going to make some suggestions here, and I'd like to hear what my fellow council members have to think. One way is we're adding 2 PEOs, and each PEO generates approximately $200,000. We could add a third in. That does mean more people are going to get parking tickets, but that's a possibility. We could increase the property tax from 2.0% to 2.1% and capture that $100,000. That has its pluses and minuses. My only other thought is I don't know how much an increase, including the carpools in the increase for the ride share, does that make very much difference at all if you increase the carpools?
We thought it was about $95,000.
Okay. Well,
and again, these are all that of all the numbers you're talking about. That's the kind of the mushiest.
Okay. Well, can you remind me of what does Chicago charge? What is their additional tax on those shared rides? Does anyone remember or know?
Ms. Dorley is the expert of
Yes.
all things with four wheels.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Erica Storley, Assistant City Manager. Current rate in Chicago is 65 cents. And if you take a ride from Chicago to Evanston or Evanston to Chicago, you are taxed from both jurisdictions. So the tax will be over $1 with our new proposed rate, which is why we've included this tier and exempted the carpool rides from it, because those are the most price-conscious customers.
Right. And actually, it saves, environmentally, it makes some sense to encourage
Absolutely.
people to share. Okay. I'll take that one off my choices. So
Can I just ask for clarification? Because I watched the APW meeting, so nothing, Alderman Sufford, and I thought you had proposed a change or a suggestion on the ride share.
Sure.
And while we're on this topic, I just want to make sure we're all clear.
My proposed amendment was 20 cents on the pool or line, depending on which company it is, but on the shared rides, no tax on the wheelchair rides, and then all other rides would be 45 cents.
So is the 20 cents already baked into what we have up here? It is. Okay.
And so the adjustment, we don't mean to get ahead of the council, but the adjustment down reflects what Alderman Sufferton is recommending.
And just a point of clarification.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
Can you repeat what your recommendation was for the seniors, please?
We didn't have
wheelchair. I mean,
there's
for
no
the
way.
wheelchair.
For the wheelchair rides would be exempt from the tax entirely.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay.
And I don't have numbers, but there is a lack of accessible vehicles. It's not a significant amount of rides.
Sure.
Ideally, it'll be more, but
thank you.
they'll be exempt.
Thank you. Back to Alderman Nguyen.
So I'm looking for ways to come up with $100,000 in revenue, because I do think that the dollars we spend for mental health are very important dollars that then save us money down the line from police and fire calls, from other issues, from costs of homelessness, and the mental health dollars are scarce, and there aren't enough of them. And people, there's no question that we have a greater and greater need for that. And it's all part of having a healthy community, that we have appropriate mental health, if we can. I know that we've cut this before, but I really think it's critically important that we maintain it.
City Manager, is it 100 or 150,000 that we've?
It's 150.
It's 150,000 that we've cut, because right now it's at 750, and in 2018, and the budget has it. The proposed budget has it.
So we're looking, in order to restore it, I'm sorry, I may have misspoken.
Okay.
It's $100,000, because the decrease went from 250 to 150. So to restore it, it's 150. So to restore it would be 150. So the cut is 150.
Okay.
The proposed cut was reduced by 100, but the cut is still 150.
All right.
Thank you.
So then one PEO is what we need.
All right, so you're looking to solve that problem to restore there. Got it. Okay, so now we're going to go to Alderman Rainey and then Alderman Fleming.
I don't want to get into the budget yet, but I'm wondering, can we have that spreadsheet emailed to us?
Sure.
Like
right now?
So that we can
Sure.
track.
Coming your way. Okay.
Thank you. It's not
as
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
One quick question. Is there a distinction between the liquor tax, liquor by the glass, poured liquor, and liquor by the bottle? Retail liquor.
I don't think so, man.
I think it's all 6%.
Could we look into that and let me know if there's a way we can distinguish between the revenue generated liquor by the glass versus liquor sold in retail, grocery stores, drugstores?
We will look as we're speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming?
Sorry, what side are we doing now? The revenue side?
Well, I was asking, for the revenue side.
Is that, because again, I don't have this document, so that's where it's right here in front of me now.
Let's see, if we scroll up, this is more
And
the
it's
budget
in your
side.
packet.
But it's in the packet,
It's page 76.
Not this document, it's not in our pocket.
But it's a PDF. Kate will send it to you as
That's okay.
an Excel sheet.
Here, I can get to page 76 because I did
It's a
not
big
see it.
Excel sheet.
Oh, here we go. All right. Sorry, I missed that one. Okay. All right, can you come back to me then so I can make sure my question is in the revenue?
You bet. Alderman, let's see, we've got Clerk Reed, excuse me, let me go to Alderman Sufford and then Clerk Reed.
So the adding a third parking enforcement officer, if we add that with a more significant increase in the surface lots and then the parking meters and then increase the amount of free time available downtown, do you have an idea what that would cost? I understand the people not wanting nickel and dime people. I understand that and I agree with it. I think you feel much more nickel and dimed when you get a parking ticket than when you pay something up front that you knew you were paying.
I agree.
And so I think while the increased revenue from the new parking enforcement officers is legitimate and welcome, we're probably better off just increasing things up front and people know what they're getting into rather than having them feel that enforcement is arbitrary and upsetting. And if we can sweeten that with increased free time in the underutilized downtown garages, there may be a balance there that increases revenue and leaves residents feeling less nickel and dimed than just increasing the parking enforcement officers. Do we have any idea like what the balance is or where the sweet spot is on that?
I'll speak before Erica gets. I think we're approaching a sweet spot with a third. So I think if there's something else you'd like in the mix with that, I think because you also then get a certain amount of diminishing returns. I think we felt, and obviously we've been talking about this for months, the 2 was sort of a sweet spot number. Alderman Rainey, other members of the council had talked about weekends and evenings, so we feel that the 2 can cover that. Any more, I think, we would not have a consistency throughout the week because we probably would need even more to provide that on a more consistent basis. And then if we did provide that, then I think you absolutely have that diminishing return. So you mentioned, Alderman Suffordin, about increased free time. Were you thinking the Sundays? Or were you thinking
I mean, if a person going downtown knows that they can either pay an increased fee at the meter or have 3 hours free on the top 2 floors of the garage in spots that are underutilized anyway, and they can make the decision whether they want to pay the convenience premium or park for free, it solves the issue that we hear about where people say that downtown is too expensive to go to because you do have an option. And I don't know what percentage of capacity our garages are at anyway. I mean, these are spots that are already built, paid for, paved, and striped. Like, why not encourage people to utilize them? And if it turns out that people are utilizing them rather than using the meters, then we've learned something valuable, and those people are still downtown doing whatever they are doing downtown, and that's good for economic development. So I have a question about that, and also, the neighborhood parking coordinator, that job description and what that would free up the parking division manager or other staff to do. And I don't know if you could help me understand if there would be a positive revenue impact on including that position in the budget again.
A lot of questions there. I'll try to remember them all.
Just trying to figure out how to get the most money from parking in the most fair and equitable way possible.
Certainly. So what we've proposed earlier this year with the demand-based pricing strategy was all geared toward right-sizing the entire operation system-wide. Part of the reason for the parking specialist position that we're proposing to create is to make sure that we're on the path for that and that we continue to stay on it so that we don't sort of fall behind the market. Tonight, in the APW committee, we talked about the towing policy change and the street sweeping increased ticket. That revenue is not reflected in this worksheet because it came from Parking and Transportation Committee. It didn't come about as part of the budget. So if that is approved tonight as part of the council's actions, then that revenue could be added to this sheet. It's roughly $350,000. As Wally mentioned, with the law of diminishing returns with adding parking enforcement officers, it's not like we can just add 10 of them and get $4 million. We will see people change their behavior if we are able to ticket or enforce in a manner that's more consistent. So I would be hesitant to add any more than 2 at this time, especially given we're also contemplating the change in the crossing guard program. So if the crossing guard program is awarded to a vendor contract versus being handled in-house, we would have those existing parking enforcement officers freed up to do better enforcement and, like I said, to adjust the hours. Right now, the hours have to be set around the times when the schools are open, and 7:30 a.m. is the earliest shift. They have to be available to cover for those crossing guards should they call in sick, et cetera. That's not the most ideal time for parking enforcement, but that's when we have to schedule the enforcement officers. So once, if the council direction is to approve that, which we plan to bring next week, that will free up a lot of time for the current parking enforcement officers. So that, coupled with 2 additional officers, I think that's probably getting to a right size, and I think we would want to evaluate that over the next year and then just determine if in the following year another one was warranted or not.
Ms. Dorley, the changes that were considered earlier this evening for towing, those revenues go where? Parking or general fund?
General fund.
Thank you.
And so that, if that was approved, that 350 isn't reflected up here in our revenue. Okay. It's good for everybody to know. All right. Anything else, Alderman Sufferman?
I guess, is there a reason why we have to have every residential parking permit be a flat fee, or can we charge more for more restrictive residential parking permits that we offer? Should someone who gets 2 hours between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. pay the same rate as somebody who gets all day? Do we have a way to look at that and see what would be a fair way?
Yeah, that came up a few weeks ago. We certainly could adjust based on the level of restriction for more heavily restricted areas versus less heavily restricted areas. And that would take some time for us to sort of suss out, but definitely something that could
that would
be
be
done.
like something that the neighborhood parking coordinator would do if we chose to hire that person?
Yes, absolutely. And going back to what Alderman Nguyen suggested a couple of weeks ago in terms of sort of indexing some of these out into the out years, we looked at the residential parking permits, and we think that a logical place for them to get to in the near term is $50 per year. So we're at $30 this year, $5 a year for the next 4 years, or whatever the council decides, $20 next year. That's probably a good place to get to. So that's also something that the parking specialist would work on.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Sufferman. Clerk Reed.
Yes. I am asking for a discussion and a straw vote from the council or direction to the city manager's office regarding vital records. The clerk's office has presented a proposal to transfer vital records to the clerk's office. In the original budget that was presented for 2019, there was vital records was slated to be eliminated. The clerk's office made a proposal, and there has been an alternate proposal presented after our proposal, which limits the availability of birth and death records to 3 days a week between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. The alternate proposal, if I'm not mistaken, only allows folks to request those records, to request and pay for those records online. And the alternate proposal brings in less revenue. If you're looking for $100,000 for the general fund, Alderman Nguyen, or whether it's for the Arts Council or for the public health or for Gibbs Morrison, here's $100,000 that otherwise wouldn't have been there. With the clerk's office proposal, we'd be able to have the service available to residents throughout the week. On Mondays, the clerk's office is open until 7 p.m. So we could potentially see increased revenues for vital records. The total revenue for vital records and projected revenue for 2019 is $146,000. With the current availability, that would be the projected revenue, which is only attainable by keeping it by transferring it to the clerk's office. The clerk's office is requesting $40,000 to help pay for the program cost, which is $17,500. We're looking to provide free birth certificates for the state allows for free birth certificates there. We're specifically looking to provide free birth certificates also for survivors of domestic violence and young adults participating in the Mayor's Summer Youth Program. And those costs for those free birth certificates would come from the $40,000 as well.
Okay. So thank you, Clerk Reed. So just so everybody's on the same page, the initial proposal had us terminating vital records as a service of the city. It could be achieved through the county or other places. We heard a lot of feedback. City Clerk put forward a proposal. I know City Manager, the council last left that with you to take a look at that proposal, as well as from the Health Department, where vital records is right now, and we sort of left it to I still think it's under Health Department, I think. So, but to have you take a look at it. So, because we're on vital records and it's come up, can you just take us through that one line item, and we'll have any discussion amongst the council and then move on to the other issues?
Sure, and I waved off Director Thomas Smith. I'll wave her back in. But again, I think we looked at it. I think we feel comfortable that we can provide good services at the 3 days a week. I think the community has come to be very comfortable with the service offered in the Health Department.
It's in Parks and Rec.
And Director Thomas Smith, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add. Welcome back from vacation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Hagerty, honorable City Council members, City Manager Bobkowitz, City Clerk Reed. So the question was,
when last you were here,
yes,
there was a discussion about having the services as an alternate proposal provided 3 days a week with existing staff within the department, and you had felt that before your departure that was a reasonable plan to look forward with. We now will have that, I think, through the end of this year. I think the council is just looking to get some additional feedback from you.
Sure. I think at this point, what we can do is still offer the services to accommodate our residents, with the understanding that they do have other options to get their certificates. And I think it would be wise at this juncture to attempt to do that service and see if it works and evaluate it. And if it is not conducive for the residents, to maybe consider expanding the hours, but I think it would be wise to offer us as a continued site to provide those services as one of the options that the residents would have. And again, I'm so open and so willing to reevaluate to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community.
Well, let me just before you go any further, I'm willing to do a quick straw vote on this. Is there a motion on this straw vote?
You want to take questions?
We can, if people want to ask questions.
If we can maybe flip all the lines off and start.
I've got the order that we're in, so I promise I will go back to you. Let's see. It'll go Ravel, Fleming, and then Ruth Simmons. So I'm just going to turn these off for a second. Okay, so for any questions of Vonda on this issue. Okay, whole bunch. Let's start with Peter Elder and Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there's been a number of different conversations floating around with staff, and one of my primary concerns, and I agree it was raised by Alderman Holmes in a previous meeting, that, and I share this like members of the council, so for our nuclear families, like, sending an application over the internet and paying online with your credit card is fine. I guess what I'm more concerned about is our non-traditional families and the situations when I receive a phone call, particularly with, death certificates.
Sure.
Let's talk about the 3 days, and let's be clear with what you're able to do in terms of staffing with, and I don't know, I know that the person who was here was gone. I have to be honest, I may just ask you to back up a little bit and just remind us, like, how long that person, what were their staffing hours, and what are you proposing, is my simplified question.
Sure. The current staffing hours of the previous employee provided this service with a closure between 11:45 and 1 p.m. for lunch.
Okay.
So the hour started at 8:30. The last certificate request was honored at 4:15. 4:30 at the latest, because it takes a little time to process.
Sure.
The current status is that we allow for mail-in applications, that residents could mail in a check or a credit card authorization form along with the request. There was another opportunity to provide an electronic application where they can apply online with the same information available to receive the certificate and also pay, and they can also walk in. Those services will still be reflected in the proposed part-time 3-day window. And I will tell you that anecdotally, the majority of our birth certificates are received from non-Evanston residents that happen to deliver in our jurisdiction. And so many of those constituents do apply online because of proximity and convenience, and they actually come into the window to actually receive the physical document. The majority of our death certificates are ascertained by funeral directors. Again, we have two prominent funeral directors in our jurisdiction, so the majority of those requests come outside of our jurisdiction, and they are really represented. They really come in to physically receive the death certificate, not the family, but we do have families that actually come in to get their own records, and we work with them as well. But the majority of the requests for death actually come from licensed providers.
Okay. And so in our budget meeting, Director, I think Erica shared, our Assistant City Manager shared that business unit generated a revenue of, what is it, 20?
It's about $20,000 with that full-time employee.
So 20,000, 5 days a week, whatever hours you shared. We're now reducing it to 3 days a week with a part-time employee. So is there going to be a shift in the revenue to offset the reduction in hours, or are we projecting the same revenue?
You know what? It's difficult to project the same revenue when there's other opportunities for residents to get certificates in other locations, which is new. We've never, in our jurisdiction, had the capacity to get your death and birth certificate from our county offices through our currency exchanges. So I really don't have a true idea of what that projection could look like with those additional opportunities. But again, proposing this part-time status is something we can look at over 3 months. We can look at it and reevaluate it over 4 months. You know, again, my goal is not to compromise or create barriers for any resident that needs a certificate from us.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear, so getting a death certificate, or I guess a birth certificate through an exchange, a currency exchange, that's new. That hasn't existed.
That has not existed in this
years.
Jurisdiction. It's only been in existence over the last 3 months.
Oh, I see. So that could disintermediate what we get. Okay.
We ask what that process looks like.
Right. Others, you can get your death certificates from any county office, but for the first time, county offices have expanded their jurisdiction into local currency exchanges in Evanston. But you can also get certificates through Skokie Courthouse, where there's a county office.
But I think somebody said that if you get it through a currency exchange, it literally may take you still 10 days to actually get the death certificate.
It's an application process, and they have up to 10 days to get you your certificate.
Whereas that's not the case here. Right? I mean, if somebody comes here, we have access to the system.
If we have access to the system, and if it's in the system correctly, because we can make minor changes, but they can get it same-day service if the criteria is met.
Okay. Not with the 3-day proposal, though, to be clear.
Okay. Alderman Wilson.
Okay, answered much of the questions, but it sounds like the walk-in customer is kind of uncommon, but if somebody walked in, I'd hate to have them, sent away. So,
if I may, Chairman, walk-in customers are very common. We have folks in our office daily.
Let's let him finish. I'll get you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Relatively speaking is what I'm talking about. So, and I heard what you're explaining. So for the walk-in customers, how would that get handled in this?
Sure. So in the previous practice, when someone walks in, like two people may walk in at the same time. There are 3 staff currently with a supervisor that's trained on the system that could support and assist. We have had some seasonal upticks where there are more than one customer at a time, and we don't like customers to wait. And so there are other staff that are trained that can provide the service.
And this system is, it's a state system, is that correct?
Yes, it is a
Okay.
state portal.
And do you have to be trained or certified, or what are the
Absolutely.
requirements?
You have to meet a certain criteria for Homeland Security to actually pass the legal provisions to even provide the service.
Okay. And that's an application process. And
Yes, application process, a background check, and it's also administrative code driven, that it's the local health department, public health director, that's the local registrar.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
That answered my question. I wanted information on how it was regulated, and it is a mandate that it is overseen by the health department?
Correct.
No, I want to if we're going to misstate facts, we want to get everything correct. So it is not mandated that the health director, in the code, in the state code, it is very clear that vital records can be provided by a list of offices, one being the health department, which is true, another being the city clerk's office, another being the road district clerk, which would be the city clerk's office if we had a township. So it could be in by law in the clerk's office, and we've settled that. If Ms. Storley can answer that question, or Ms. Mason Cup, it is available to be provided in the clerk's office by state code.
And I think it would be appropriate to have the health director clarify that.
Thank you.
That is not my understanding.
Okay.
Can we have the legal department clarify that?
All right. Let's.
Well,
let's,
I mean, it's.
If we get to the point where people up here wanted to go to the clerk's office, we'll confirm that. I want to get to the alderman up here.
What is this about?
Can't get to that point if the facts aren't straight. So we got to get the facts straight here.
Something about the 3-day proposal. I'm not sure. Clerk Reed, you mentioned something about a 3-day proposal for the application. Could you give me some background on that?
The 3-day proposal, I'm not clear as to the question.
I can clarify that.
That's okay.
I can clarify. Under the current proposal, birth and death records will be available for pickup 3 days a week. That is the proposal, Wednesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There will be no walk-ins available during that period either. Folks will only be able to request these records online. And here's another key thing. We're looking for revenue. The current revenue projection for this program is $16,000, as it's listed there. With the proposal that the clerk's office is putting forward, the revenue would be $100,000. It would maintain the current levels of service and access to residents, making this very convenient for residents, but also making sure that we can provide free birth certificates to groups that aren't currently eligible for them. So that means folks that are participating in the Mayor's Summer Youth Program. That means that a young man who wants to get a job, potentially a job here as an intern in the law department, won't have to miss out on that opportunity because they can't afford a $15 birth certificate. That means that a mom who is a survivor of domestic violence who lives in our city and is being serviced by one of our local providers will be able to get birth certificates for free for her and her children so she can put her kids in school and she can find employment. That is not under the current proposal, so to me this is a no-brainer.
Are we currently able to offer any?
Absolutely.
Not to those groups.
Absolutely. I've been here 13 years, and under my leadership, if anyone has a hardship, regardless if they meet the criteria of being homeless, I have waived the fee from teen moms. I've waived the fee for people who have had fires and lost everything and have no identification and have no way to get identification without a birth certificate. I've waived fees to expedite someone needing a passport because they have, travel for a death. They've had to travel internationally. I have the authority to waive the fee for any hardship that is brought to my attention. And I will tell you, over the 13 years that I've been here, I have waived the fee for homeless, domestic battery, for all. There is no law or state statute that.
Please, let's let the director talk.
The public health director has police powers to waive a fee if there is a hardship for a certificate, and I've done that.
Thank you, Director. Alderman Fleming.
Corporation Counsel, did you figure out the
Yes,
answer?
I did. Good evening, Michelle Mason, Cup Corporation Counsel. Under the Illinois Administrative Code, Title 77, Public Health, Section 500, the appointment of local registrars. Certain individuals can be appointed as eligible. The Public Health Director is obviously one of those. She's been in that position for quite some time under Section 4. And the city clerk can also be one of the persons registered. What I haven't been able to figure out is whether or not Avonda Thomas Smith or someone in your authority was formally appointed to be our local registrar for the city. That I don't know. I would assume that has been part of our legislative history, and the city would need to change that registrar. So there are 5 eligible individuals that could serve. One is not applicable because we don't have a township clerk.
Who are the others?
What are the others?
First is the city clerk. Second is township clerk, not applicable. Road district clerk, also not applicable. Public health director. And then if none of those officers are available, a full-time public officer of the local government could be appointed.
Okay.
So another employee.
Another city employee.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So if the city council wanted to go with the clerk's proposal and move this down to the clerk's office, that would be allowable.
It could happen. I just need to see if
Got it.
if
Got
we
it.
need to change.
Okay.
If I
Can I
may.
ask my question?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I think you answered this, but I'm about delirious at this point. You said that right now, even with the previous staff gone, your staff are trained to use the system and could take on this 3-day-a-week proposal.
Yes, so we have a current customer service rep that 20% of her job is vital record support.
Oh, okay. All right. And then my other question, well, one, I thank the clerk for making a proposal and doing the research and figuring out that you could be the registrar, whatever we call it for this. So I do want to applaud you for taking that up because I do like the idea of, us providing these free certificates when necessary. I think particularly about, some of the general assistance people who
absolutely
need this because you need a birth certificate to do so many other
and those
things.
fees have been waived. In the
Yeah,
past.
so I'm glad to hear that. So that was my only real question, I guess.
Sure.
All right, we got Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I feel most comfortable in keeping it with your office, Ivanda. So I'm going to make a motion that if we're going to take a straw poll, that we keep vital records in the health department.
Second.
Let's go all in favor. It's a straw poll.
I had a few other things to say. I think it's unfair when we have misinformation out to continue with this vote without first.
All right, so tell you what, I will let you have the last say here, Clerk Reed, and then we're going to do a quick straw poll vote on this and move on to other issues.
Okay, so the state code allows for any local health, anyone who's issuing vital records to give free birth certificates to 3 groups. We had a conversation with the state registrar in my office last week. We have a very deep understanding of how this works. You can give free birth certificates to folks who are homeless. You can give free birth certificates to people who have been released from prison in the last 30 or 90 days. And you can, I believe that's the extent of who you can waive the $10 mandatory fee for. Anyone else, specifically the Mayor's Summer Youth Program kids, that is not something that is currently being offered. That is not something that the city could absorb. You cannot waive the $10 fee, and that is something with our proposal that we could accommodate, as well as being able to take the service mobily to the facility and provide those birth certificates for participants in the Mayor's Summer Youth Program. It's $100,000 in revenue that we otherwise would not realize. It's $90,000 more than the current proposal. It would be more accessible to our residents, where they could continue to receive the same level of service they're receiving today, meaning they can access those records 5 days a week, and in fact expand the access to those records because we're open until 7 p.m. on Mondays.
All right, thank you, Clerk Reed.
Call the question.
Okay, we're going to call the question. Yeah, you go ahead.
Alderman Wilson.
The point of clarification is leave the,
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
I could go with the clerk. So is that a no? I'm sorry. I'm so tired.
You're a no?
You sure?
Okay.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Okay, so that was just a quick straw poll. It's going to stay as is in the current budget. Alderman Braithwaite.
I guess one of the things that I would love for you to exercise, and I think you said it, so we basically have about a month and a half left within this budget season. I think just looking through the rearview mirror, the department or that budget line generates enough revenue to cover the expenses. So in my mind, this used to be a department that was run with 2 people.
It was a service that was run by 2 staff people, 2
Right.
full-time staff employees.
Right. So I'm not going to ask you to break down the math, but if the math works that we're able to provide the 5 days, able to provide the same level of service, I would like to see that you work through that. I'm a little bit concerned with the notion of, and I think I didn't read it, I just heard it, 3 days with just applications coming in through online services.
So we
And
would
I know that
really
hasn't
outreach the
clear.
application process, but that's not the only method to ascertain certificates.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification.
Sure, absolutely.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think as Director Thomas Smith said, we've got an opportunity now over the balance of the fiscal year to keep this up. And we'll promise to keep you apprised, and
Absolutely.
if it makes sense to make an adjustment, we'll come.
yeah.
We're all on the same page with this, and I think we just want to make sure the residents of Evanston are best served.
All right, great. Thank you,
that is not
Director
your fault.
Thomas, and thank you, everybody. Okay, we're moving back to where the lights were before we started this conversation. Alderman Ravel, you had yours on.
While we're throwing out possible revenue ideas, I just was trying to remember what we learned when we discussed the ground transportation tax, whether we could extend that to private charters and shuttle buses. What happened to that conversation?
Collect.
And
The Corporation Council has information.
I'd be happy to answer that. So the City of Chicago currently does tax private charters and shuttle buses. They have a different tax. They do it on a per day basis and versus, it's per shuttle per day, I believe. But anyway, they have it in their structure that way, so you can charge it. However, I don't believe, for example, Northwestern University even charges the students for those buses.
Yvonne, please.
I don't know, but I believe that that's the case. But the City of Chicago does have a structure that allows for this. So there is a mechanism to charge it.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Ravel.
Well, looks like Alderman Fisk is ready to jump in with a comment on that. But I don't. And is it too late to come up with some potential money for that to put into this year's budget?
Okay. So, all right. Well, we got Alderman Fleming's light on, and then we've got Fisk, then Rainey.
We're still on the revenue side. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, and I asked Alderman Simmons this later, but I wanted more information about Gibbs Morrison, but at this late hour, I think I'm just happy to, at some point before the year ends, to get an update on Gibbs Morrison.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Alderman Rainey, and then Alderman Fisk.
I'm especially interested in taxing the free enterprise bus in some way, shape, or form. It rambles through our town, it cuts people off at left turns, etc. I'm curious if Chicago has a tax, are they taxing the free enterprise bus? Or licensing it, or requiring a wheel tax of some kind?
I would assume it's within the purview. It didn't list an exception.
And Alderman Rainey, members of the council, we'd be happy to follow up with that. I mean, again, I think it's 11:15. We're trying to get a sense of the council of where you're at with things. If there's additional revenue sources that you'd like us to look at, why don't you just list them at this point, and we'll do our best to get you information in the next week. then I think maybe to go on to the expense side, Mr. Mayor. We've identified the mental health board. If there are other expenses that you would like to see adjusted, I think just to get a sense from the council, then our plan will be to come back with version 2.5 in a week. And then, because it looks like we're very close, but I also want to be mindful of the time.
Thank you, City Manager. Alderman Fisk, then Alderman Rainey.
Well, I'm going to stay on revenue for a minute. Wally, one of the things that I had suggested is that we look at the private buses in a slightly different way, and that was to tax based on ridership, and hopefully that will shrink the size of the buses that are using the city streets and who have very few riders in them, but who are still not only making noise but exhaust, and that would promote a healthier environment for us. I think the buses that Alderman Rainey is talking about are the intercampus buses.
The free buses.
Yeah, and so I'm sure one of the Northwestern Daily folks could elaborate on this, but they do pay for a lot of things. So the bus service is included with your wild card. So any of you who have wild cards, you can get on the bus. The rest of us can't. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of revenue is that by not having a dog beach, we're losing roughly between $60,000 and $90,000 a year. If we have an opportunity to figure out a play area for animals on the lakefront, that would be great, because I think that is the most attractive option for dog owners. So I would like to definitely look at that.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk, Alderman Rainey, and then Alderman Braithwaite.
I read the explanation about the entertainment tax, amusement tax, I think it's called. And I wasn't quite sure who's getting taxed. If Mudlark has a play, their tickets are not taxed. If Fleetwood Jourdain Theater has a play, are those tickets taxed? I'm trying to figure out whose tickets are taxed, because I'm thinking that revenue source, if we could increase it, could help out the arts.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, on page 21 of the budget memos, it's a 4% tax imposed upon every amusement patron for the privilege of admission to any amusement in the city. However, the tax shall not apply to government agencies, religious societies or organizations, live performances conducted or sponsored by nonprofit institutions, organizations, groups, or societies where no part of the net earnings inure to the benefit of any private shareholder or person.
I'm sure everybody understands that, but
So nonprofits don't have to pay.
All right, but what's a nonprofit? I mean, Mudlark, I guess, is a nonprofit?
It is a nonprofit.
But they pay their people? They pay their administrators?
If they're a 501c3, you can be a nonprofit and still have employees, and so they would fall into that category. My understanding is the largest contributor to the admissions tax is the Century Theater.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking maybe we should look at that. I mean, there's a source of. I'm thinking about Theo Ubuque. It's coming. Are we not going to be taxing them?
No,
at all.
They're not, because they are a nonprofit.
Well, I think we ought to reconsider that, because they're serving food. Well, they're going to. We'll get money. Part of their ticket is food. But it just doesn't seem right that we're all paying to go to these shows, not just Theo, but all the other shows. There should be an amusement tax, and that would help out all the arts.
So I've asked staff how much the annual budget is for that. $250,000. So if we were to raise it to 5%, that's about $75,000. So if you wanted to raise the tax itself and then study over the next year who it applies to, that might be an option. I think we've also struggled with other entertainment venues in Evanston that have popped up over time that are not nonprofit that have been.
Those guys would go bananas.
So also, Alderman Rainey, maybe enforcing the existing tax. There are some businesses that have done very well for themselves, which I don't know that we see. So we'd be
We're
happy
taxing space, right?
Yes.
I mean, definitely
Yes.
space. And rock and ravioli, I don't know.
and I just hesitate during the public
we
meeting
need to take a look at
speculate on
that.
others.
But in the meantime, I would like to have a budget memo on increasing the current entertainment tax.
Okay. So all I could say is it would be about $140,000. Is that what you said?
Sounds like real money.
$140,000 a percent? No, just around 70,000. So to increase from 4 to 5% would be 70,000. I don't think we can get you good numbers
I
if you
understand.
change
I understand.
how it's applied.
But I would like to suggest that any increase in that revenue as a result of increasing the tax go to the Arts Council.
Okay.
To support their, I think they're calling it an assistant.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Braithwaite, then Alderman Fleming.
I actually forgot my question.
Perfect. Alderman Fleming.
All right, I have here's my, whatever we are. I would like a budget memo about the insurance fund. I know we continue to put more money into it, but if we can get a report of like year-to-date activity of the budget. My other question is about the police, and so now we're holding the 4 instead of eliminating the 5.
That's correct.
And so, maybe I missed it, but I don't know what the 4 are. If they're, I know the commander, I think, is still off the list, so I'm interested to see what the other 4 are. And then I'm also interested, I guess I need more information because in the report we just paid for and talked about in Human Services, she talked about the Hines report. She talked about, she recommended doing a report or an analysis of staffing to make sure we have staffing in the right places. So I guess I would like to just make sure in holding these positions open before we fill them that we look at the staffing as the consultant recommended. And then my other question is I realized in the fire portion we adjusted overtime. And I know the initial budget had a police increase overtime at 100,000. So I just want to make sure we're being mindful of that now that we're keeping these positions open and not eliminating them, what that might do to overtime, because I would like us to take a better look at police overtime and really make sure that we are being mindful of keeping that under control.
So, Mr. Mayor, Scott, I've got the insurance fund information, and we can provide that.
Oh, great. Okay.
I think I can either give you the other right now.
No, you can.
I mean, because I think it's been provided in other pieces.
Yeah, so maybe, and that's because I know that there was one memo, and then, so now I just want to know where we stand. So it just says 4 positions. I just want to know what those
What's
are.
being proposed is we would go back to the current model of holding 4 positions within the patrol division vacant.
Okay, so
which has
patrol
been what we have done over the last year. I am recommending we move forward with the elimination of the commander. The commander position has been vacant for the last year. The Hillard Hines study endorsed the idea of the elimination of at least one commander. We have been working with police staff, Chief Eddington, over the last, 4 or 5 months on the ability to combine the detective commander and the juvenile commander with the officers who are in those commands. They feel comfortable with that, and so that is still proposed. So the only staffing change at police that is being proposed currently, major staffing change, make sure I'm not misspeaking, is that the 4 police positions would be held as they have been in the current year.
So we don't need to adjust overtime because we already added in the 100,000.
I feel comfortable with where we're at with police overtime. I think it's important to keep flexibility with that. I think the success that we have seen with the police department, just even some events of this past summer when we've had the ability to deploy officers in an overtime fashion has really been very significant. So I'm comfortable with that. I believe that the new police chief, when they are on board, will be tasked to look at this further. The Human Services Committee has already asked the new police chief to come visit visit before they're even selected in February to talk to the Hillard Hines report. So I really think that what you see up there for police makes sense. The reimbursements from Northwestern are very important, either reimbursement or they'll choose to provide the services otherwise. So I feel otherwise the police package is solid, and we'll get you the information on the insurance fund.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite.
I remember my question. It was back in the revenue in the boat launch. So I saw the revenue line. I just didn't see the math. Like, how did we get to the 14.5? And if it was in the memo, sorry, I missed it.
And Ms. Lewis Lakin's nodding yes, and we will find it quickly.
It's the 14.5.
It is, there's a few, I think. There's memo 33, that's the Lighthouse Beach loss. There's the parking permits for boat racks. That's not it.
Yeah, but I don't even know what it is. That's why I'm asking.
Ms. Lakin, am I? We can get, if there's a memo required, we will do it.
Can you just add in the numbers? I'm just curious to see how we get 14.5.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, and Clerk Reed had a question or comment.
Yes, I am requesting that someone make a motion to increase the clerk's office's budget. Our budget, which has not been presented or discussed up here, has been cut further from last year, and none of that was reflected. I'm looking for someone to make a motion so the clerk's office can continue the work that we've been doing, especially around elections, to increase our budget by $25,000. There's a revenue neutral way that I propose to do that.
Thank you, Clerk Reed. So just in regards, City Manager, to the clerk's budget, that's in. Can you just give us a quick update on?
Yeah, let me pull
that?
it
Thank
up
you.
just a second. Multiple documents open here. City clerk's budget. Current year is $191,784 was the fiscal year adopted budget. We estimate that the year-end budget will be $210,491. The proposed budget is $183,000. So quick math, that's a reduction of $7,000, $6,000, something like that. Looking at the line, that's on page 66 of the proposed budget, on page 67 of the proposed budget. Salary and benefits, adopted budget was $155. That's proposed to be at $159. That's going down to $142. I'm not sure what so that's an adjustment of about $13,000. It's the insurance, so that's an increase in insurance costs, decrease in insurance costs citywide. So services and supplies, $31,000 is the budget. The estimate for services and supplies is $45,996. So that's a overage of $14,000, and then the proposed budget is $34,000. So that is a increase of approximately $3,000 and change. The biggest difference there, the seasonal employees, the current year budget is $0. The estimated budget is $25,000, and that is then reduced down to $8,300.
Can you email that to us, City Manager?
It's on page 67 I'm just reading out of the proposed budget. Interfund transfers are going up from $5,059 to $5,295. And that is a reflection of transfer for debt service to pay for previous city clerks' retirements. So that in the current year budget was $4,059 is going up to $4,295. So the proposed budget, the adopted budget for 18, $191,784. The proposed budget for 19 is $183,082. So that's a decrease of $7,000 and change.
In City Clerk, you're asking for 25,000 more than the 183?
Yes. We have one of the lowest funded clerk's offices in the state. To continue the work that we've been doing around elections, to continue to provide the services that we've been providing.
So just so I'm clear, City Manager, so I want to make sure I rattled.
And for a
You
software
said
update.
the budget for 2018 was 191,000. The anticipated actual expense for the city's clerk is 210,000?
That's correct.
So the clerk's office, Clerk Reed went over the budget by $19,000 this year? Does that sound right to you?
At the end of the year, I believe the number will be lower.
I mean,
There's money that that
seasonal
to be
employee was
transferred.
budgeted at zero, and the estimated amount is $25,000 for seasonal employees. I think that's probably the biggest change there. Election supplies are less. Office supplies. I'm looking budget to actual. So the budget for election supplies was $9,500. It's estimated to be $3,000. Codification services about budget. Printing is about budget. Travel and training is down significantly. It's $2,000 in the budget. $200 is the estimate. Office supplies was budgeted $1,525 up, and the estimate's $2,100. So office supplies, seasonal employees, those are the bigger.
What jumped up over budget?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if I may clarify, there are transfers from funds that will lower that amount. There are furlough days in the office that have not been taken yet that will lower that amount. I last year and this year have taken furlough days where I'm not required to take furlough days by law. I've done the same number of furlough days that have been required of all city employees in solidarity. So furlough days are for my salary are not included there yet. As well as the fact that I have not taken a pension. I've put my own skin in the game to make sure that this office could run and make sure that we could provide a quality service for the residents of Evanston.
Oh, terrific. Okay, thank you, Clerk Reed. So what we need to do is we need to have a motion up here if one of the aldermen wanted to move an increase in the clerk's budget. I think it's fine that we've had the discussion. Let's give people just a little time to think about your request. Let's get back to the budget sheet. If there's nothing else on revenue, I want to look at expenses on that quickly, and then we have a consent agenda we need to go through, and there'll probably be some items pulled off of that to talk to. Okay.
May I ask a clarifying question of the clerk? Just what is the extra? I know you said to do that same thing.
So
Can you
the
tell me what those are?
25,000, yeah, I'll break it down. So part of it is staffing to continue to have interns in the office. The interns, members of the public will tell you how great it is to be able to interact with
Can you
staff
just
members,
give
as
me
well
the-
as thank you, as well as a software purchase. We've wanted to introduce a legislation tracker here, a citizens legislation portal. That software cost is about $10,000. We asked for it last year, and we got less than the amount that it would cost for the software upgrade. So that's the
right,
breakdown of
thank
the
you.
25,000.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
I guess just a quick question, because I'm looking, I recall last year, or maybe it was this year, we allocated $8,000 for what I thought was going to be the software that you needed. So I don't see where that's reflected, and I'm a little confused on if we did allocate the $8,000, where was the money spent this year when it was allocated for software? I'm a little confused. If you can clear that up.
Yeah, I can clear that up. So the motion was made by Alderman Ruth Simmons. Thank you for that motion last year. The motion was for miscellaneous, that we can refer back to the record, to the minutes, to the video, and so the software was a potential. We did use part of it for software. Part of our election services requires software, whether it was our text campaign, which was a software. The software that I'm looking to implement next year is $10,000 for the first year, $500 afterwards, and that is to create a citizens legislation portal.
I guess just for clarification, Clerk Reed, if you can point or just direct me where in your expenses was the $8,000 allocated. That's what I'm
to election services.
Election server. Okay.
Election supplies, I should say.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to the expense budget. Again, now we've had a discussion about the clerk's office. If someone wants to move to add additional money to the city manager's budget for that, you're welcome to do so. All right, so we've talked about revenue. On the expense side, Alderman Nguyen discussed her concern about the cuts to the mental health board. Any other items here with the adjustments that the city manager has made that folks want to discuss? Alderman Rainey. Go ahead, Alderman Rainey. Oh, yeah. So the discussion on the arts was the concern. City managers added back in the $50,000 grant money, but there has been the concern noted up here and by others that should a certain amount of money be set aside so that they can have some coordinator assistance, administrative assistance. And that I tend to agree that, we no longer have the cultural arts coordinator position, and, think that, some amount to support that group in making sure they're, getting the grants that they can get and giving the money away properly. And I don't think it's a large amount, but something may be appropriate. Alderman Fleming.
I would like to have, and I'm pretty sure we don't have it, a description of what the management analyst would do in the health department. I know that there was talk about, them getting grants and stuff, but I guess my concern is that public health piece that we might still be missing. And then my other question, I understand I might be on my own on this one, but I still object to the auto allowance. I understand that management is not getting a raise and raising their insurance costs and so on and so forth, but I also understand we have a $7 million deficit, and I feel like if we pay people fairly, in a time like this, to say that we need to give them an auto raise because they're not getting another benefit, for me, is not justified.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other items that people want to discuss on the expenditure side? Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you. The health department, in terms of the analyst position, I pulled the job description for the assistant health director that's been included in our packet, and so I just want to get some clarification from our staff. If is there a hybrid job description somewhere in the packet that I missed that breaks out some key positions? Because as I look at it, I think a business analyst is someone who's like crunching numbers, and whereas when I look at the position formerly held by Carl, there seems to be some really crucial things in terms of managing the food protection program, manages or investigates foodborne illnesses and communicable diseases, administers the West Nile grant. Well, that makes sense, but manages the city's lead poisoning and rodent control, and the list goes on in terms of environmental health issues that, with all of our restaurants and obviously with our public, we've already heard from our social service agencies, we've heard from our hospitals with concerns. So I just want to make sure that if this is something that isn't going to work, we understand what we're going to be missing. You're a phenomenal director. You've found a way to find resources, make things happen, but this, to me, seriously raises a red flag.
And Mr. Alderman Braithwaite, members of the council, Dr. Thomas Smith and I talked very briefly this afternoon. We looked at some job descriptions. Why don't you let us spend another week and come back to you with more information? I think, it's very clear the council wants to be as supportive as possible of the department. I think there is an answer here, and I think another week worth of time looking at job descriptions, making sure we've got what we need. So why don't you, if you would give us that, we'll be happy to come back on the 19th. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely.
I think as we sort through vital record, there's a lot of moving pieces here. We want to make sure we're giving you the right information. So give us a week and we'll come back.
Terrific, thank you. All right, any other items that folks want to discuss on the expense side with the recent changes? Okay, seeing none, City Manager, I think you and your staff have heard sort of the conversation today about some of the revenue ideas and thoughts, as well as on the expenditure side. We're going to go now into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, just before we go, just so I'm clear, it looks like I'm looking at the Health Department. I'm looking at that one position. I'm looking at finding money to fully fund the Mental Health Board. I'm to be as creative as possible, looking at remaining parking issues. And looking at the bus, the bus issues, the amusement tax. But otherwise, if we do all of that and come back to you in a week, we will be close to where you need to be. Is that a correct statement?
I would just add the one other thing, the conversation you may have stepped out was to take a closer look to see if there should be some kind of amount set aside for the arts outside of the grant amount for coordination support. Alderman Nguyen.
Well, I was going to mention that, but also I will say I appreciate Alderman Tuffordon's looking at all of these issues about the parking, but I have a reluctance to go higher than $1.50 an hour in our downtown. I think that is counterproductive, and I withdraw my suggestion of an extra PEO as potentially being counterproductive. So the other things that we've discussed tonight, I think are I can agree with, but I think going above $1.50 is going to be counterproductive for us. So.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, I had asked for the increases in the parking meters to be applicable citywide. Yep. And was that in a budget memo? Do we know the difference between?
We've done a number. I think really, Alderman Fisk, members of the council, it really comes down to a policy question. What's the dollar?
The policy right now is that they're the same citywide.
That's correct.
All right, so if we follow that same policy, then what's the revenue?
So we can, I think we have all the numbers. We can give you $125, $150, $175, $2. But I think it comes down to a community standard issue. What do you think is fair and appropriate? All of the various pros and cons to this. The 1 to 150 is $877,000. Is that correct?
That, based on the feedback from last week's discussion, we did implement as part of this the increase to 150 citywide, and this number reflects a March 1 start date. So the overall number is about $1.2 million if it were realized for a full year, but we're building in a couple of months to take time to implement the changes with the meters and the pay boxes and all of that.
But the council, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but the council citywide 150, no more.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll be back in a week.
Thank you, Wally, and thank you for the entire city staff and all the hard work you're doing on this. Let's go ahead and move to the consent agenda. Alderman Ruth Simmons, if you take us through the M1 and then through APW.
Through the M1. A1?
M1 being the minutes. Yeah, just because
okay.
you're starting off.
Approval of regular meeting minutes, October 22nd, 2018. A1, payroll, October 1st, 2018 through October 14th, $2,783,484.16. Payroll, October 15th, 2018 through 2028 through October 28, 2018. $2,909,989.58. Bills list, November 13, 2018, $4,529,828.66 for action. A2, staff recommends City Council authorize City Manager to execute a 3-year agreement to sell roads, salt. What's wrong?
Just commenting that our council members
I'll continue. We have a quorum.
Yep, continue, please.
I don't know where I was.
I think A2, the salt.
Thank you. The SALT agreement is for action. A3, staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a 3-year agreement to sell road salt to Evanston School District 65. The agreement period is November 15, 2018 to April 15, 2021. The price of salt for the period of November 15, 2018 to April 15, 19 is $70.63 per ton. Is for action. A4 is for action. Staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to execute contracts with the following 4 vendors to supply water treatment chemicals in response to bid 1844. Alexander Chemical Corporation in the amount of $167,040. Penco Incorporated in the amount of $119,880. Polydyne in the amount of $59,400. Carith Group in the amount of $134,400 to supply blended polyphosphate. The total of these proposed purchases is $538,179.60. It's for action. A5, staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Vermeer Midwest Incorporated for the purchase of a directional drilling machine in the amount of $99,939. Funding for the purchase of the directional drilling machine is from the Water Fund. It's for action. A6, contract with, staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the Clearwell 9 replacement project with Thaineman Construction in the amount of $19,213,700, contingent upon receiving the appropriate loan funding from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. Is for action. A7 is for action. Staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to execute change order number 4 to the agreement for the treated water storage replacement project engineering services with CDM Smith to extend the contract time to March 31st, 2021, which is the end of the planned construction period and closeout activities. There is no charge for the contract. A10 is for action. Staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to execute 16 contracts for snow towing services in the amount not to exceed $60,000. A complete list of vendors can be found on the corresponding transmittal memorandum and attachments. Funding for snow towing contractors is provided by the Snow and Ice Control General Fund. A11 is for action. Staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with We Got Game LLC for the City of Evanston Athletics Program.
That one was pulled off. I was going to vote no. Thank you.
A12 is for introduction and action. Local Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 131-018, amending Evanston City Code subsection 346 to increase the number of Class U liquor licenses from 1 to 2 and permit issuance of a Class U license to Theo Theater located at 721 Howard Street.
That's for introduction, but is that for introduction and action?
Yes.
And action, okay.
A13 is for introduction. Local Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 131-018, amending Evanston City Code subsection 346 to decrease the number of Class D liquor licenses from 51 to 52 and permit issuance of a Class D license to 817 University LLC. A14 is for introduction. Staff recommends that City Council adopt Ordinance 117-018, which would increase the water meter charges and water rates by 11%. A15 is for introduction. Staff recommends that City Council adopt Ordinance 118-018, which would decrease the sewer user rate by 7.5% from $3.66 to $3.39 per billing unit. A17 is for introduction. Staff recommends that City Council adopt Ordinance 130-018, which would increase the fee to allow public parking spaces and/or other public right-of-way to be reserved for loading and unloading of moving vehicles and storage containers without obstructing traffic flow from $100 to $120 beginning January 1, 2019. A18 is for introduction. Staff recommends City Council adopt Ordinance 134-018, amending City Code subsections 10-452 and parking in predominantly residential areas to amend the permit renewal date and increase the residential parking permit from $15 to $30. A20, staff recommends City Council adopt Ordinance 145-018, amending various sections of Title 10, Chapter 11, Section 12, parking meter zones, adding Sunday enforcement from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m., increasing the rate of all 2-hour meters from $1 to $1.50 per hour, all long-term meters from 25 cents per hour to 50 cents per hour, and all 20-minute meters from 25 cents to 50 cents beginning March 1st, 2019, with an automatic increase to $2 per hour.
Sorry, just a point of clarification, Alderman Simmons, on the item that you were reading, line 3, Sunday enforcement from 1 o'clock? Should read 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what we talked about earlier, and it says 12 o'clock in it.
So it's just an edit.
Okay. From 1 o'clock.
Clean it up with the second reading.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A21 is for introduction. City staff requests City Council adoption of Ordinance 143-018, amending Section 1083, Schedule of License Fees, increasing the annual license fees by $10. Excuse me. A22 is for introduction. Staff recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 148-018, amending City Code Section 325-2, to increase the real estate transfer tax for sales with a price over $1.5 million and 1 cent. For sale prices up to $1.5 million, the tax is $5 for every $1,000 of value from $1,005,000 and 1 cent to $5 million. The tax is $7 for every $1,000 of value. And prices at $5 million 1 cent or more is taxed at $9 for every $1,000 of values for introduction. A23 is for introduction. Staff recommends adoption of Ordinance 136-018, amending Ordinance 125-017 regarding the City of Evanston permit fee schedule. The proposal will create an application and fee schedules for expediting permit and plan review services. A24 is for introduction. Staff recommends adoption of Ordinance 135-018, amending Sections 3 to 4, hotel, motel, and vacation rental tax to add bed and breakfast establishments. A25 is for introduction. Staff recommends adoption of Ordinance 137-018, amending Ordinance 50-013 to improve compliance with vacation rental licensing requirements. Staff proposes to increase vacation rental licensing fees to align with cost of administering the program. A26 is for introduction. Staff recommends approval of Ordinance 141-018, amending rental registration for rental residential buildings to include inspection requirements and the addition of accessory dwelling units. This amends the rental registration process to include a fee of $200 for the initial inspection and registration of the existing dwelling units, including accessory dwelling units, coach houses, and a fine from $75 to $375 for renting an unregistered unit following the amnesty period. These changes, including the fee structure, were approved unanimously by City Council on October 29, 2018. A27 is for introduction. City staff requests City Council adoption of Ordinance 133-018, amending Section 329 of the Evanston City Code, Transportation Network Company Tax. The ordinance adds the definition of shared rides and solo rides and adds a fee of 45 cents per solo ride in a transportation network vehicle. For introduction. A28 is for introduction. City staff requests City Council adoption of Ordinance 150-018, amending Section 923 of the City Code, increasing the ambulance transport fees to $1,500 irrespective of type of call. A29 is for action. The Transportation and Parking Committee and staff recommend City Council approval of a free holiday validation program for parking meters in the city's 3 downtown self-park garages for evenings and weekends beginning November 24, 2018 through January 2019. Funding is provided by the Parking Fund. The anticipated expenses for this program is estimated at $30,000.
There's a lot there. Can you do me a favor? I followed this really closely, and I may have made a mistake, but could you reread, because I'm afraid we just may have skipped it, A16?
Sure. A16. It's not on the consent.
Wait. Is A16 is the municipal? I think we missed it. That's why I want you to read it in. It's Ordinance 128-0-18, municipal solid waste and increasing sanitation.
You can actually take it. I took it off and voted. Yeah, I voted no, so it wasn't on consent agenda.
Okay, so that A16 is off the agenda, so we'll talk about that separately. That's municipal solid waste. Okay.
There was also an amendment to the transportation network tax, A27. Substance amendment.
All right, so A27 should be off as well. Okay, so we'll cover that again, transportation. Okay, network tax. Okay. All right, thank you, Alderman Roos-Simmons. Alderman Wilson, could you take us through planning and development?
Yes, thank you. Item P1 is a vacation rental license for 1918 Jackson Avenue. City staff recommends approval of a vacation rental license for the property located at 1918 Jackson Avenue. The vacation rental meets all of the standards and procedures for license approval. This item was held at the October 8th meeting until the next meeting, and this is for action tonight. Item P2, vacation rental license for 1005 Dewey Avenue. City staff recommends approval of a vacation rental license for the property located at 1005 Dewey Avenue. The vacation rental meets all of the standards and the procedures for the license approval. That is also for action tonight. Item P3, Resolution 99R18, authorizing the city manager to purchase 2 vacant lots located at 2122 Darrow Avenue and 2113 Dewey Avenue. City staff recommends approval of the resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase 2 vacant lots located at those addresses in Evanston for the reasonable sum of $2. 2122 Darrow and 2113 Dewey are vacant land acquired as foreclosed housing with the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. 2 NSP2 funds. The properties are being transferred to the city so the city may close out its NSP2 grant with HUD by December 31st, 2018. That's for action. Item P4 is off the agenda. That is being held at committee. Item P5, Ordinance 144-018, granting a special use for a Type 2 restaurant and drive-through facility for the McDonald's restaurant at 1919 Dempster. Zoning Board of Appeals and City staff are recommending adoption of Ordinance 144-018, granting special use approval for a Type 2 restaurant and a dual-lane drive-through facility for the McDonald's restaurant in a C2 district. The applicant has complied with all zoning requirements and meets all of the standards for special use for this district. This is for introduction, and there is a request for suspension of the rules. Item P6, ordinance suspension of the rules for an action for P5. P6, is that off? Okay.
Yes.
And
so that's off and held in committee?
No, it's just off for discussion
here. All right. P6. Alderman Fisk, could you take us through the Rules Committee?
Yes. 01 is for introduction. It's Ordinance 140-018, amending City Code Section 2-13-1, Board Establishment and Composition of the Board of Animal Control. It reduces the number of members from 7 to 6 and the number of City Council members from 2 to 1. 02 is dissolution of Taxi Cab Advisory Board. City staff reports the Taxi Cab Advisory Board was dissolved through Ordinance 66016, amending and revising Title III, Chapter 17 of the Evanston City Code regarding taxi cabs and motor vehicles for hire by deleting the entire section that referenced the board, its for action, and accept and place on file.
Great, thank you. Alderman Braithwaite, could you take us through economic development?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move for action item 03. It's a contract for consulting services with TESCA for the study and creation of a special service area for Central Street and Green Bay Road.
Terrific. Is there a second? City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
All right. The consent agenda has passed the Evanston City Council on a 9-0 vote. We'll go to the items that we pulled off the agenda. Alderman Ruth Simmons, if you can take us through A11, A16, and A27.
A11, staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with We Got Game LLC for the City of Evanston Athletics Program run at Robert Crown and Chandler Centers. The agreement is for 3 years with a mutual option to renew for 2 additional 1-year options.
Just, that's where we're making the edits. The agreement is for 1 year.
Okay.
All right. Well, she was just introduced. She was just introducing it. Somebody had to second it. Then we were going to make it change.
Okay.
I know it's late. Okay. Go ahead, Alderman Ruth Simmons.
It's for action.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Alderman Braithwaite.
And so, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our committee, we made 2 quick edits, and one is, so the agreement is for 1 year,
Yes.
and then the contract period would start January 1st, 2019, and then end December 31st, 2019. And for those members of council that weren't at the committee meeting, we had a really healthy discussion, and the thought process was, is there a group or local organizations that could help with the target group? And so staff felt comfortable that, staff shared that we definitely don't want to change anything for this year, but they would look diligently over the course of the season to figure out if we can find a way to have more local participation.
So, City Attorney, do I need to do a vote on the amendment right now to change it from 2 years to 1 year? Okay. So if you can just state that as an amended motion, and we'll get a second. We'll do a quick vote on that.
Sure.
Alderman.
So I would move that in line 4, we strike 3 years to 1. I would also like to amend the contract period from January 29th, 2019 to December 31st, 2019.
Second.
Okay, City Clerk, seeing no lights, City Clerk, can you take the roll?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
All right, the amendment to change it from 2 years to 1 year passes on an 8-1 vote. Okay, can we do a roll? Seeing no lights. There was a motion and then a second. Can we do a roll on the?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Okay, A11 professional service agreement with We Got Game LLC for the City of Evanston Athletics Program passes 8-1, amended to be 1 year. Okay, Alderman Ruth Simmons, can you take us to A16?
Yes, A16, staff recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 128-018, modifying Title 8, Chapter 4 of the City Code for Municipal Solid Waste, increasing the service charges for refuse collected in 95 and 65-gallon rollout carts by 15%, the collection of refuse from condominiums by 2.3%, and the charges for special pickup beginning January 1st, 2019. It's for introduction.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Not sure why it was pulled off, but okay. Okay, City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right, ordinance 128-018, amending Title 8, Chapter 4, Municipal Solid Waste, and increasing the sanitation service charge, passes for introduction on an 8-to-1 vote. A27, Alderman Simmons.
A27 is for introduction. City staff requests City Council adoption of Ordinance 133-018, amending Section 3-19 of the Evanston City Code, Transportation Network Company Tax. The ordinance adds the definition of shared rides and solo rides and adds a fee of 45 cents per solo ride in a transportation network vehicles for introduction.
Is there a second? Okay, Alderman Suffredin.
Sure. So the proposed amendment changes the rate based on the type of ride accepted. If it's a shared ride, it is 20 cents. If it is a solo ride, it is 45 cents. And if it is a wheelchair accessible ride, it is tax-free.
Second. Seeing no lights, could you take the roll, City Clerk?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right, the amendment passes 9-0. Seeing no lights, can we take the roll on the ordinance itself, the amended ordinance?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right, item A27, ordinance 133-0-18, amending section 3-2-19, Transportation Network Company Tax as amended, passes the Evanston City Council on a 9-0 vote. Alderman Wilson, can you take us to, I think it's just P6 because P4 was held?
I think so. Item P6, ordinance 147-018. This is a major adjustment to the plan development at 1571 Maple Avenue. Plan Commission and staff recommend adoption of the ordinance for approval of a major adjustment to the plan development at 1571 Maple Avenue in order to modify the parking lease condition of approval from 101 parking spaces. The staff recommendation is to 70 parking spaces available within either the Maple Avenue or Sherman Avenue garages, as well as to modify the on-site affordable housing condition of to provide one one-bedroom on-site affordable housing units to households with incomes at or below 50% of the area median income, instead of the current 2 units affordable to housings at or below 100% of the AMI. The period of affordability for the unit would remain at 10 years from the first rent up, and this is for introduction.
Is there a second? Okay. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, I had asked for the Sherman Avenue parking garage to be eliminated. So the parking spaces would be at the Maple Avenue parking garage instead.
Okay. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And then, so there's another edit. The applicant has requested that we reduce the number of parking spaces from 70 to 55.
Okay, can we do both of those? Do we take those amendments separately?
Let me make a more complete motion altogether. So I'm going to address a point. I don't have a strong opinion, but my concern, I think currently it requires the spaces to be at Maple Avenue Garage. I guess we don't know what the future holds, so I have a slight preference for providing us with the option to, if Maple gets leased up for some reason based on conditions, that the Sherman Garage would be an option. So that's why that's there. The applicant in the materials that we have here had previously requested, the staff recommendation is 70 parking spaces. The applicant has requested 55. The maximum rent up, according to the materials, was 46. So the 55, I guess, was intended to give a cushion. Obviously, the 70 is a greater cushion. The applicant had also asked for 60% of AMI instead of the 50%, which is the staff recommendation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion. Alderman Fisk, do you feel strongly about Sherman?
I do actually.
Okay, then that's fine. So I'm
okay.
not going to include that in there. So I'm going to make a motion to modify the proposed ordinance to remove Sherman Avenue garage as an option, to change the parking space rental number to 55, and to modify the AMI percentage to 60%.
Okay. Seeing no light, City Clerk, can you take the roll on this?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right, so that amendment passes the City Council 9-0. And now can we have
Alderman Wilson. Alderman.
So at the committee, there was a motion to suspend the rules. Part of the intention in my mind was to get the affordable housing unit on the market as quickly as possible. Anybody dissent with suspending the rules? If there is, I won't bother, but if there's not an issue, and we can proceed with it.
On this item?
On this item. Okay, so I would move that we approve that we suspend the rules and approve the ordinance 147-018 as amended.
Second.
City Clerk, could you take the roll?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right. Item P6, Ordinance 147-0-18, major adjustment to a plan development at 1571 Maple Avenue as amended, passes the City Council on a 9-0 vote. Okay, we're going to move to call of the wards. Alderman Braithwaite. Oh, it seems it's always you, Alderman Braithwaite, doesn't it seem that? Or Alderman Wilson. Okay, excellent. Somebody different than Braithwaite starting off.
Despite what I might otherwise say, I'm going to say no report tonight at 12:10 a.m.
We all appreciate that. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
I hope to see all fifth ward residents at our ward meeting this week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. at Family Focus, our place in the theater.
Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
No report.
Alderman Fleming.
You're not that lucky. So I must have missed this, I guess. I had some questions about the youth and young adult program, but what I will just say as my call of the wards is that we've watched many people come in here about many different things they care about. This budget cycle, I think since priority-based budgeting, we've had a consistent turnout of individuals who've talked about their personal impact or their kids' impact with the youth and young adult program. And I guess I would just say personally that I'm a little frustrated that we did not follow Alderman Braithwaite's suggestion and keep the program intact to get through the budget season so that we can have a more fleshed out discussion that wasn't just a more fleshed out discussion, I'll say. Also, as we've gone through the budget season and other things on this council, I've seen people come out and I've seen us kind of change our mind or listen to our constituents and make changes to things we maybe thought we were going forward with. And I guess I'm concerned that the amount of people that have come out about this program and voicing their support for the program and also just how they see the program as being really impactful to a group of people who otherwise, a lot of people in the community don't feel like are impacted by city dollars or city staff or whatever. That I'm just personally frustrated that we have not responded to that group of people and they continue to feel the need to come out to these very long meetings. I know it makes our public comment really long as well. We don't get to all of the things we should get to at a reasonable hour. And so I'm very hopeful, since we did not have a presentation today as we told the community we would, that by next week we'll be at the point of having a better fleshed out discussion. And if that's going to prolong us, that we would actually give the community a date when they can hear that, and then we will stick to that date so people don't feel like they need to come out every week and make a plea for something that we should all know is very important to the community based on, we've had teachers and lawyers and business people and students and a wide array of people come out, and I know that from the calls I get, people are getting more and more frustrated because they feel like they're coming out, they're making pleas that they see their other citizens in the community make for things like mental health, and that's back on the table. For the Arts Council, that's back on the table. But they are really feeling like they're not being heard by this council. So I hope that we would take that to heart and understand that people need to get clarity from us in terms of what's happening with this program.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen? Okay.
No executive session.
No executive session?
Nope.
Unless you want to.
Oh.
I really want to.
I was all geared up for executive session. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
All right. Is there a second? All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Anyone want to stay longer? All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for staying. For those of you that stayed and those of you that are still up at home watching us, have a good night.